captured. I'm about to lose my brain stuck inside this ghetto rapture. I got a lot of smoke. If you want it, you can have it. They want a hat trick, but this is black girl magic. Ain't talking about the kind that'll make you disappear, but I'm talking about the power of the melanin within. Ain't looking for trouble, but I'ma say this one time. I put 2 dukes up if you try to touch mine. We still want justice for Samir and Trayvon. You say you don't see color, but racism ain't blind. They targeting little kids whose skin look just like mine. So I'm paranoid, it's a war zone outside. And I'm a black queen, so if you ask me to step out of my car, you gon' have to snatch me. Cause I ain't going no damn well. Had to spend my whole life living unfair. Ancestors got my back and they right here. You can never understand, it's a nightmare. Living in my black shoes by the black rules. You can keep your handshake, I don't dap coons. The white man that go nuts if he cash you. But you all on his side like a damn fool. Make it make sense.
We are oppressed.
Queen.
We are exploited. We are downtrodden.
Make it make
Queen.
We are
sense.
denied not only civil rights, but even human rights.
Ahmadiyah.
So the only way we're going to get some of this
Ahmadiyah.
oppression and exploitation
Queen.
away from us or aside from us is come together
Queen.
against the common enemy. Who taught you to hate the texture of your
Ahmadiyah.
hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your
Ahmadiyah.
skin?
Parents, pay attention to the books, the school system, given to your little children. Lies mixed with wisdom. His skin too bright, so he was blind to the prison. My skin just right, so I collide with division. You trying to pray to God, but we tired of religion. No savior saving, we got to save our savings. We used to pay miss, how we gon' make the slave rich? But who's to blame, and tell me why you complaining? We need a team effort just to rule the nation. Like a bad relationship, missing communication. We missing moderation. They trying to get a poison to my population. No reparations. I'm getting tired of Satan.
We are oppressed.
Queen.
I'm getting tired of waiting.
We are downtrodden.
Queen.
We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights.
Ahmadiyah.
So the only way we're going to get some of this
Ahmadiyah.
oppression and exploitation
Queen.
away from us or aside from us.
All right. Hold on. Okay, there I go. All right, hello everyone. Thanks for tuning back in once again to the original Queen QueenAShakur show. Also, thanks to those of you tuned in on Queen QueenAShakur TV show. I'm your host, Queen QueenAShakur, and this is your daily vitamin. So everybody, let's get fire emojis in the chat for real Nathan Daley here. Okay. He is gracing us with his presence again. Y'all requested him. They loved you last time. They said we have great chemistry and they wanted you back on the show. So here we are. Okay. And so, Ms. Hotel says, shout out to Queen's guest, Nathan Daley. All right. Okay, so, hello, Silent D, Obsidian Blaze, Honey 69, Juju, Mr. Hotel, Bithia. Okay, let me see who else is in here. Danielle, G from the Land, Lamar, That Crazy Beach Aries, Deronda. Okay, my aunt Egypt. I see Deronda, earlier you asked about the link for the shirts. Moderators, please put that in there for her, please. Cherokee Descendant Dale, Hundia. Shout out to my moderators putting in work. G from the Land, I see you. All right, so with that all being said, shout out to everyone tuned into the Queen, everyone in the chat. Don't forget to like and share this video. Y'all know the band. Also, please make sure that you follow me on Instagram at Dr._A_Shakur. Also on TikTok, Dr. A Shakur. Twitter, DGoddess27. Double check to make sure you're still subscribed to the channels, especially if you have not been receiving your notifications. And if you don't like what the Queen is cooking, well, you already know what to do. As per usual, exit stage left and unfollow, unsubscribe. It's that easy. Okay? And make sure you go and follow the real Nathan Daley. Okay? He has excellent content. And you know, they be hating on him too. Pay attention.
They be hating, boy.
Okay. All right. So, Nathan. Mr. Hotel said, often imitated but never duplicated. I know that's right. Okay. So, I'm sure you've gone over the information about the no-knock warrant where the young man killed a police officer. I said that word again, but I can't help myself. So when the young man shot a police officer who entered their home and basically thought it was a home intrusion. Now, they did say that they found a pound of marijuana in the home, right? And so, but they have charged him. They upgraded the charges as after the officer died. And so they have charged him with first-degree murder.
Right.
So, what do you think about that? And then let's not forget that the mother was shot in the face. I think her tongue was severed, and
Right.
she's in ICU in critical condition, fighting for her life. And then her husband lost his life. And the thing is, he's a 13-year veteran of law enforcement, like yourself.
That's correct. That's correct.
Oh, so
Yeah.
sad.
Yeah, this is a very sad story. Before we dive into that, I'm just say hello to everybody. Thank you for our first stream together. Was amazing. It was intense. It was good. Great conversation, and I agree. Great chemistry. A lot to cover, and I honor you as well, Miss Queen, because you take the time to do the research. You're looking at all these cases that don't get a lot of popularity. This just goes back to show that I speak on these things all the time, that there's so many of these incidents that do take place that go underreported in a sense in the grand scheme of things. And it can be misleading to the public. And so I appreciate the work that you're doing, and then shout out to the chat. So
Thank you.
so let's get into this. This is a very interesting case. I started diving into it, and I'm explaining to you guys about the law, how this piece works, whether or not no-knock warrants are good, if they're bad, the benefits of them, the pros and cons, and then also this case in particular, a couple of things that stood out to me was first, the biggest red flag in this case is when you have a police department that's not transparent on the basic information, right? They don't release anything to the public, and all this information is public knowledge. It's supposed to be public knowledge.
That's right.
There's a federal law, it's called the Open Records Act. And so you have a right to actually go to these police departments, any of us citizens, because this is public record, and request this information. And you have to pay for it. You have to pay for the time and it being printed out. But regardless, you're supposed to have access to it. Police departments have gotten sued because they haven't released information in a timely manner and so forth and so on. And this particular case that I looked into, they're not even cooperating with the victim's family or the attorneys, as far as, hey, we weren't given a search warrant. So before I dive into the details, let me tell you how policy works.
Okay.
When an officer is conducting any warrant arrest, any search warrant, you are required to leave a copy of that search warrant at the residence. If no one is there, you leave it in plain sight, somewhere where it'll be readily
available when they
Right. So I would normally leave mine like near the fridge, near the sink, somewhere where you know someone's going to run into it and be like, okay, the police were here. And a lot of times we do that because we sometimes tear the place up. And so you don't want people going home saying, oh, I think someone broke in the house and whatever. No, there's a search warrant here. We left a copy of the warrant. That's something that we document in our paperwork. Was a copy of the warrant left with someone or at the residence? So, and let me give you a little backstory with this too, from a TV standpoint or movie. Okay. You guys, we all seen Training Day, right? Macy Gray, when Denzel went into the home and he faked like he had a warrant, he was in there, he was like, search warrant. And what did she know? She knew her rights. She said, I need a copy. You're supposed to give me a copy of the search warrant. He was like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, man, take that. And she looked at it and it was like like a Chinese menu.
Yeah.
So there's truth to that. We are supposed to leave a copy of the search warrant with someone who is owner of the home or someone who's a guardian of the home. So I was listening to one of the family members, a daughter of one of the victims, the victim of the mother. And she said that they never left a copy of the search warrant. They don't know what they were searching for, who they were searching for. That information was not turned over to anybody after that shooting. That's a red flag number one.
Right.
Then I started looking into the officer who was in charge of putting the search warrant together. She has been reprimanded before. There's been news articles about her before about not doing her job properly, not properly writing out search warrants and things of that nature, cutting corners and so forth and so on. So another red flag, you have a police department who has an officer who is a problem. They know she's a problem.
Right.
She has a history of doing things incorrectly or violating policy, possibly violating people's Fourth Amendment right, because when you falsify documents to acquire a search warrant, like a Breonna Taylor situation, you are then violating a person's Fourth Amendment right. their protections from illegal searches.
Search and seizure. That's
and
right.
seizures, you guys. And so, so looking at that, I said, okay, this is a problem. You have a department that what we call negligent retention is when the department is negligent in maintaining and not letting go bad officers, right? That within itself is a lawsuit. So I'm looking at all this, I'm saying, okay, red flag, okay? The other one is I watched the video of the officers storming into the house, and you had a lot of plainclothes officers. You had no type of tactics, right? I didn't see any proper equipment. I didn't see any ballistic shields. Why is that important, right? And I spoke about this same thing before when it came to Amir Locke. For those who don't remember, Amir Locke was in, I think it was Minneapolis.
That's the 21-year-old that was on the sofa.
He was on the sofa sleeping.
Yeah.
And he was reaching, and they startled him, and they shot and killed him because his gun was on him, I think, or nearby him or something.
It was on the table next to the couch, I believe.
Correct. The problem in that case, you had untrained officers going into a home without proper equipment, because you're supposed to have a shield. You're supposed to have a shield. That's to protect the officers, because you're going you're disturbing the peace and tranquility of a home, and you're not necessarily announcing to let people know, or you're doing it at a time of day or a time of night where it's unreasonable for a person to hear you say police, police, and then going in, right? So what they are saying in this particular case is that no one heard anything. They didn't hear anyone say police at all, right? So this, as we know, is a no-knock warrant. They're saying that the warrant was established because of this was a drug investigation. There's no history of drugs from that home, according to the victim. There's none of the residents in that home have any type of criminal record whatsoever. What I thought was very interesting was the media tried to spin it and say, well, guns were found in the home, drugs were found. Well, they didn't say marijuana. They said a Schedule I drug, and I thought that was interesting.
Now, see, in the article I saw, one of them, I did see they said marijuana pound, but in the other ones, they did spin it. Another thing they did in the media is they did not say in several articles that it was even a no-knock warrant. They made it sound like they came there with a regular warrant, and this man just fired on them knowing they were the police. And I mentioned that to my people when I was talking about it. Yeah, they didn't say anywhere in the articles. It was like 2 or 3 articles that I read. They never mentioned that it was a no-knock warrant.
Correct. Which is scary, because you know one of the witnesses or the victim, the daughter of the victim, she basically stated, she said, "Hey, our home was burglarized earlier this year. I believe it was June, I think."
Yes.
It was June. Their home was burglarized in that neighborhood. So because of that, it put this sense of fear and discomfort. So what they say, okay, we need to protect ourselves, so let's get some guns, which they're 100% in their right to do so. You have a right to defend your home. So when the media said there was guns in the house, I'm like, why is that relevant? Right? It's a home. You know, you expect there to be guns in the home. So the problem with saying it's a pound of weed or a Schedule I drug, a Schedule I drug, for those that know, that may not be familiar with the language, you have Schedule I and you have Schedule II. Schedule I drugs are supposed to be considered synthetic drugs that aren't used for medical purposes. So there's been a going complaint, especially here in Georgia, that, hey, how about we need to take marijuana off of the list of being considered a Schedule I drug, because it very much is used for medical purposes. That's right. That's right. So, and the person having a pound of weed, I don't know what the law is in reference to marijuana in that particular state. I didn't look into it. But having a pound of weed is again not equivalent to this person. It doesn't rise to the occasion for someone doing a no-knock warrant. You know, the purposes of a no-knock warrant is to prevent, one, it's for the protection of the officers, right? That's number one. It's for the protection of the officers. Let me give you the theory behind it.
Okay.
And in theory, it makes sense. It makes sense. And I'm gonna give you my whole thoughts in reference to no-knock warrants, and then why I disagree with them. All right. At this stage, I've been a part of searches of homes. I've been a part of executing no-knock warrants. I understand the benefit of it. And I also understand the dangers. It's a double-edged sword for everybody, officers included. The purpose of the no-knock warrant is so that you don't alert the person inside that the police are here to, come in, arrest, or look around.
Right.
It's also to prevent the person inside from destroying evidence.
Evidence, yes.
That's the only safety and preservation of evidence. That's it.
That's right. You want to catch them off guard.
And you catch them off guard.
Yeah.
The problem is it's a double-edged sword, because now if you go in and the person doesn't know that you are an officer, they, according to the law, have a legal reason to defend their home. This puts officers at a disadvantage. As we see in this, we have an officer that was killed.
Yes.
We have an innocent victim who lived in the home who was killed, and we have an innocent woman who was nearly mortally wounded.
Yeah.
And so nobody wins in this situation.
And all for what? A pound of weed. It's not even that serious.
It's not.
It's not even that serious. And then they could say, well, he was selling it. I think that's what they charged him with, intention to distribute or whatever. He could have bought that for himself.
He could have bought it for himself.
I know some people. I'm telling you, you think Snoop Dogg doesn't smoke a whole pound of weed in a week? He probably smoking in 2 days.
In 2 days. I think the problem is my philosophy is anytime you have officers who abuse a tool or they do not use a tool properly, I believe it should be removed. It should absolutely be removed. And so often we're seeing a repetition of officers not being able to utilize this tool properly. They're either going to the wrong house, they're either falsifying information to get the warrant, to do the search in the first place, or they have a solid case. It's a legitimate drug house where drugs are being sold and people are being impacted. And they go in and they botch the raid because they're not trained properly and they don't have the proper equipment. So the question is it worth it? By the time, I always looked at it like this, and our department looked at it like this. You knock, you announce. If they manage to destroy all the evidence within 30 seconds before you entering, then there wasn't enough drugs.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? So,
right. Exactly. Because it's going to take you a minute to get, let's say, for example, a kilo of cocaine down the toilet. You can't put it all down there at once unless you want to stop it up. Then they're going to know you did something.
You're going to be walking around here looking like somebody slapped you with a pan of baby powder.
That's right.
You'll be like, oh,
that's right. So that's all crazy. It's not even worth the risk.
No.
The risk is not worth the reward. Shall you say. So now let me ask you this. So there was another case of something similar that happened. Now in this case, it was this couple right here. Now they were supposedly accused of selling heroin. It later came out that supposedly they were not selling it. Okay, you see that? Now I'm going to take that down because it's covering my face clearly. But okay, so with that all being said, they had 2 black cops who went. And I'm about to show you all the news report. Now this happened, I think, in 2020 or 2021, right? These cops were immediately arrested and charged. I thought it was very interesting because it was pretty much a botched raid, similar to the case of Breonna Taylor. The people fired back at the police because, of course, they fear for their lives and they likely didn't know that it was the police. Okay, so now here's the thing, too. They immediately went out and started digging up dirt on the cop who did it. Oh, he framed 69 people, he did this, that, and the third. Now, he may have done all of that, but I'm quite sure if he was doing all of the stuff that they said he did, they likely knew about it. But now y'all want to talk about it because we already know how they cover up. But so let me share my screen so you all can see this. This happened in Houston around 2016, I want to say.
On false evidence from a former prosecutors in Houston say another 69 people may have been convicted on false evidence from a former police officer. They're now reviewing the cases after 2 brothers were declared innocent because the officer allegedly lied about them buying drugs.
Okay, now let's talk about what happened. So here's what they say. Now they have the police chief talking. I'll show that in a second. They say when Houston police narcotics detectives served a search warrant on one of her clients in 2016 for possession of drugs, defense attorney Monique Sparks questioned the validity of the case as soon as she saw Officer Gerald Goins was involved. Okay, because she thought he was shady. She said, I would say that at least for 10 years that I know of, he's been kind of terrorizing the community. Now, she said she has received numerous complaints from defendants about Goins, about his questionable behavior, which she described as threatening and even criminal. But she said they were too afraid to file official grievances. She said, so they would tell me this, and I'm like, okay, what would you have to do to make a report? And they just wouldn't do it. Now, Goins is a former Houston narcotics officer now facing murder charges stemming from a January 2019 botched drug raid in which a married couple was lost their lives in a gun battle. Okay, that left 4 police drug team members, including Goins, wounded. Now, an investigation found Goins allegedly lied in an affidavit to get a judge to sign off on the no-knock warrant. That's the same thing they did in the case of Breonna Taylor. Okay, now, and this happened a year before Breonna. Okay, almost exactly a year, because this happened in January of 2019. Breonna's case was March of 2020. Now, an investigation found Goins had allegedly lied in an affidavit to get a judge to sign off on the no-knock warrant. An angry Houston Police Chief Art Acevedo said at a February 2019 press conference that he just lied. Now on that Wednesday, Houston District Attorney Kim Og revealed that a review of Goins' cases played a substantial role between 2008 and 2019. They found 69 people who have been convicted on false evidence presented by him. Now I'm going to play with the Chief of Police, Art Acevedo, what he said.
Probable cause to engage in an investigation and even get a search warrant. What that affidavit will show you is that thus far it appears that there are some material untruths or lies in that affidavit, and that's a problem. We know that there's already a crime been committed. It's a serious crime. When we prepare a document to go into somebody's home, which is there's a sanctity of somebody's home, it has to be truthful, it has to be honest, it has to be absolutely factual. So we know already there's a crime that's been committed. High probability that there'll be a criminal charge. We're going to get to the truth, because that's what we're working on, and we will report back the good, the bad, and the ugly, because we owe it to the suspects that were killed. We owe it to the officers that were shot. They were there having full faith and trust in that affidavit. One that's still in the hospital with very serious gunshot wounds. And we owe it to this community and to the good working men of the Houston and women of the Houston Police Department. There are a lot of angry cops, because when you violate that oath of office, you make it hard for 99% of these cops that go out there every day, that you all know them. You make their job difficult.
Okay, so he's giving them all the smoke. They were immediately arrested and charged. That's all I'm saying. And I'm not saying they shouldn't have been. They should have been, especially if what they're saying is true, that he lied and had this warrant fraudulently obtained. Those people didn't deserve to lose their lives, because from what I read, that's the 2 cops right there. From what I read, the people were not even selling heroin. They just thought they were. I don't know where they got this information from, but they later said that they weren't selling heroin after all. So 2 innocent people dead. Now, so they should be in jail. I don't care what color they are. But here's my question. How come it's so easy to send them to jail when they do this and they make a mistake and have a botched raid, or they lie or fraudulently obtain warrants? But when the cases of Breonna Taylor, they didn't do that, and none of those officers served any time for it. They got one of them, Brent Hankins, I believe it was, or was it Miles Cosgrove? I think it was Miles. But anyway, they got
No,
one of
Brett
them.
Hankinson.
It was Brett Hankinson. Okay, he's nefarious. Anyway, I've heard stories about him. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. I could tell you some stories about him to go on for days. But they say that he got the wanted endangerment, and that's just it. Nobody even got hurt when he fired into that other apartment. But nobody got any type of punishment for what happened to Breonna.
Yeah, so let me explain that, because I covered the Breonna case extensively. I actually I think I was still going through my recovery. I think I'd had my first surgery during that time, the Breonna Taylor. During that time, Breonna Taylor, the George Floyd, I was recovering from my accident. So I was glued to this investigation and I knew right away what time it was, just based on, I heard one testimony from one of the SWAT commander. And the SWAT commander said that we didn't know that the narcotics team was over there. And during the brief, they never told us they were going to be over there. I was like, oh, it's a corrupt narcotics unit. It was that easy for me to put it together, because I understand how the chain of command works. I understand how raids work, how putting together these executing these search warrants, how they work. They would never have two separate teams at separate locations like that without the SWAT commander. So the SWAT team is the trained group that actually executes high-risk warrants, because they have the skill set to do it. What they were doing, the narcotics unit, they investigated, then they hand the warrants over to the SWAT team in order to execute. That's how it works. Well, what the narcotics unit did, they were sneaking into Breonna Taylor's apartment because they wanted to get her money, the money that they believed that she was the stash house for the cash.
That's what what is his name? Jamarius Glover, her ex. Yeah. That's what he said when he was in jail.
Yeah, that's
what he said. That they thought the money was there. They knew she didn't have those darn drugs, and then they lied. They tried to lie on the postal inspector.
They did, and see, here's the thing. They falsified information. This is something they probably do consistently. I've heard stories about some of those guys, especially Hank and the unit. Plenty of drug dealers have reported the narcotics unit for robbing them of their drugs during investigations. Some of them don't report it because obviously, as a drug dealer, it's illegal,
right? Yeah, they got you in a catch-22.
It is a catch-22.
You're damned if you do, because if they catch you with the drugs, they can take you to jail, or they can just take your drugs and your money, and you can't say nothing.
Listen, I've worked plenty of cases out here in Atlanta where I show up at a scene, I got a guy shot in he got shot in his lower buttocks, right? And he nice jewelry on, great, watch, jewelry, the whole 9 yards. And he got his wallet and everything. I said, hey, why'd you get shot? What's going on? Oh, they just robbed me. And I'm looking at him like, robbed you of what, brother? You look like you got everything on. You know? And it took further talking to him. Eventually he's like, all right, man, they got me for the drugs, right? I was trying to sell them some coke, and they got your boy. I was like, why'd you just say that? Because this whole story you was telling me didn't make any sense.
Right.
So this happens all the time. And so you have corrupt officers. I had an officer who I knew, he was cool, he was a good dude. He was working an investigation, a robbery of a gas station, right? And he thought that he was getting the cameras, he was managing the cameras, getting the evidence. He thought all the cameras were off. And you know what he did when nobody was looking? He was stealing lottery tickets, right? Guess what color his skin was? Black. Wow. So this is why, and he got federally charged for that. He went to federal prison behind that. So here's the problem. And I don't disagree with you. And, I tell people all the time, it's not that racism doesn't exist within policing. It does. The issue is everything isn't always about race. Sometimes you just have officers who are protected. They're protected by people involved in the criminal enterprise sometimes that takes place in law enforcement. Breonna Taylor's case is different because those officers were protected by a higher ranking officer who was also protected by the the attorney general, Daniel Cameron. Daniel Cameron was given orders to protect those officers at all costs. By who? By that senator. right? The white senator of Kentucky, I forgot his name, Mitch McConnell.
Yeah.
So when you have influence telling you to do something, you know what they probably promised Daniel? A governor's position. Guess what he's running for today, you guys? Governor of Kentucky. I guarantee he's going to get it. See, what happens when you get in these certain positions, the corruption flows upward, right? And it flows down. Somebody who one of these officers is connected with has connections above the attorney general.
Absolutely.
And he said they better not go to prison. Daniel Cameron, this brother, I'm telling you, he pulled the greatest Houdini stunt I have ever seen in history. The BS that he sold the jury, the evidence that he excluded from the case on purpose, I don't know how he got away with it. To me,
I do.
Well, I mean, but what I'm saying is the evidence was so obvious. He undercharged them, right? They all but put over 70 rounds in the house. By the grace of God, no children were hit.
Right.
Right.
There was no Thank God no one was in there.
So corruption is what protected those officers.
Yes, absolutely.
We fast forward because of course Daniel Cameron wants to keep his job. Daniel Cameron's black, right? We've seen people in his position end up losing their job or being dismissed because they don't do what the higher powers tell them to do.
They don't go along to get along.
They don't go along to get along.
That's right.
So now let's look at this particular case. These are two black officers. When you're reading the article, you said something that was very interesting, right? You said that they had a history of this black officer violating people's rights. They have a long trail of history. One could say this brother was skating really good. He was very comfortable. He was getting away with murder, right? And so now the question is, why was he able to last in a department like that? He's black, right? Why was he able to carry on so long? And prosecutors knew that he was a problem, that his cases. So these corruption exists in policing. We all know that to be true. He then botches this raid. He gets into a shootout. Then they start looking at his cases for real, and they notice that there's a slew of cases that he has that are questionable, where he's violated people's rights. People have complained, and now they're finally taking it serious. Why? Because now
he did it to white people.
He did it to this white couple. There's no evidence. You have someone now that's going to try to hold them accountable. Yeah. And they did exactly what they should have. You know, my thing at the end of the day is there is so many different variables involved in these type of cases. You have one where I've seen black officers get held accountable. I've seen them not get held accountable. One would argue that these officers were skating around on some black privilege as officers. It dispels that myth that anytime a black officer makes a mistake that they get dealt with immediately. It's not true. You know, it just depends on the department. It depends on who's in charge. It depends on how well they maintain their policies and hold officers accountable. My department I work for, I couldn't get away with half the stuff I'd be seeing on the news. You know, I watched them send white officers to prison, federal prison. I've seen them send black officers to federal prison. It all depends on how that department functions and how they are willing to hold officers accountable. So it does go both ways, and there's a little bit of everything in the middle, to be quite honest.
Right. So that makes sense. Now, let me say this before I move to the next story that I want you to talk about. When I was in college for criminal justice, we had this ethics class, and I thought it was very interesting because they used to ask us stuff like, if you are a police officer, because, you know, some of the people were going to school to be police officers, and that's why they were there. But they said if you were a police officer and you knew that someone was guilty of doing something sketchy, let's say if they were someone who's going around molesting people and stuff like that, right? So they said if you knew this person was doing these things, but you couldn't prove it, and you pulled this person over at a traffic stop. I'm trying to remember exactly how they had it phrased. It was on like an exam or something. But they said if you pull this person over at a traffic stop, would you plant something in the car, because if you plant something, you can get them off the streets. Even if that's not what they did, you know they were doing the other stuff. So would you plant something in the car and then lock this person up so they can't bother any more children? Or would you just not do anything? And I said, I'm not going to do anything. Because first of all, here's the thing. This is the part I pay attention to. First of all, if somebody is doing something and they say you know for a fact they're doing it, but you can't prove it, well, how do you know?
Right.
If you can't prove it, then how do you know? And at the end of the day, sometimes you may know somebody did something, but you just don't have the proper evidence. Okay, that could be true as well. But there's always a chance that the person didn't do anything, or what you think you know is not what you actually know. So I feel like go by the book and go by the policy. But see, the fact that they asked us something like that just tells me that they likely, this is probably something that goes on in real life. That's what I came to the assessment of when I was 18 years old. I'm like, this is probably absolutely something that goes on in real life, okay? That these cops feel like you did something. Now, I can't prove you did this, but I got you right now. I'm going to put this in here, and I'm taking your behind to jail. So that's the stuff that happens.
That happens more than people think. I mean, I know people probably think that. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of people. I spoke to a guy who was in prison for robbery. Mm-hmm. And I was interviewing him, just, kind of talk to him about another previous case that I had. And he told me, he said, listen, I didn't do this crime. I'm affiliated with the guys, who did it. I didn't snitch on nobody, but I didn't do this crime. I said, well, how are you in here? He said, I'm gonna be honest with you. I've done a lot and never been caught. He said, I made peace with it. And he said, I believe this is a way of God, kind of like, you're playing catch up. So I've heard that before. Mm-hmm. I've seen prosecutors, I've seen officers, eventually it ends up coming out where they'll say things like, we need to get something just to make it stick. You know what I mean? They'll say things like, we need to get something that'll stick.
Right.
Because we know this person did it. And I've been in plenty of situations and it doesn't feel good. And sometimes you're taunted, right, by the criminals that you're investigating, because they know for a fact you don't have any evidence on them.
Yeah.
And so even though they know you did it, I know you did it, they know that we know, but they can't prove it. And they'll tell you.
That's right.
What you got on me? You don't even have nothing. And then once we get to interviewing, and then they're like, okay, well, hey, we gotta let them go. We don't have enough evidence. And you take them out the handcuffs, and they're like, yeah, you this, that, the other.
Yeah, they go in on you.
And so guess what? So then you got, now fast forward to six months later, obviously you run into these people again. Guess what? The officer doesn't forget. I've never forgotten. And when you finally have something legit, and this is legit, you're like, yeah, I finally got you, right? And so we have this, it's a cat and mouse game. Where the thing goes wrong, because I took an ethics class as well, and you really do come across a lot of ethical dilemmas in this profession.
Yes.
I had so many that I witnessed within myself, coming across a lot of drugs, a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And my mindset, one thing I always told myself, if I ever make the news, I will never, ever do anything to make the news, because I don't want to embarrass my family. And so that always sticks in the back of my mind. I have a case, I'm going to tell you real quick how this went. And I'm going to tell you how it ended. And it further reminded me to always be on my best behavior. I was taught that someone is always watching as a kid. That's what I always grew up learning. Had a alarm call. And this guy just had bad luck. Alarm call goes out in this neighborhood. Going to the neighborhood, investigating. The window is open, right? So in a situation like this, you guys, this FYI. So if you have illegal stuff going on in your home, I'm gonna tell you how problematic this be. Alarm company calls, hey, alarm is being active. I see an open window. So just naturally looking at it, I believe that there's a possibility someone could be inside the home. Right. I am obligated, you guys, the police are obligated to check the home. This is considered to be a safety check, which is permissible under law, under the Constitution. Mm-hmm. Officers can override your a search warrant to search your property only for safety reasons. So
like a wellness check.
It is a wellness check.
Right, yeah.
A wellness check. So now I have to I call for backup. My partner gets there. Hey, we got to climb through the window. We climb through the window. Our guns are out, and we're checking the location, right? Because the alarm company contacts the homeowner, and the homeowner says, no, I'm not home. No one should be in the home. And yeah, the officer's reporting the window's open. So the homeowner's like, okay, well, I'm on my way. They don't know that we're in there checking, right? So we're checking. my partner is like, yo, look at this. On the coffee stand, there is bags of marijuana on the coffee stand. Bags, gallon bags, right? So we're like, I was wondering what that smell was, but, here we have it. So then we're looking around and we see a bag, a black bag. Now, obviously, you're not supposed to search in the bag because our job is to only look for
the perimeter, right?
Yeah. Correct. So my partner looks in the bag. What's in the bag? Cocaine.
Oh, wow.
All right. So what do we say? All right, listen, let's back out. We're leaving, walking out. We go, as we're leaving the bedroom, I'm leaving the bedroom area. After we finish searching, there's money, a lot of money inside the bedroom. So it's like, okay, all right. We contacted narcotics, told them what we had. We backed out of the home. We moved our cars away from the home and parked behind another house. We went back inside the home and we hid inside the person's house, right? We told them to contact the alarm company and say that the police said the location's all clear, everything's all good. The homeowner comes home, he shows up, and we have our guns drawn and we order him to the ground, right? And we detain him. We detain him at the scene. We call narcotics shows up. They get a search warrant because here's the problem. The problem is the illegal substance is already in plain sight. It's already been identified. It can be seized. It can be seized by us, right? We had a lawful reason to be there. We located or naturally came across the drug paraphernalia. Now we have to get a search warrant to actually do a complete search of the entire residence. He comes home, he has 4 or 5 cell phones on this person. Come to find out he's a big drug dealer, right?
Big time, with a whole trash bag of stuff, yeah.
He has a bag of money on his person, big bag of money. That's matching the money that's inside the bedroom. So it was a good investigation. Never heard nothing else about it. A month later, the narcotics detective, he's walking in the hallway, we pass each other. He's like, hey, Nate, you remember that case you had? I was like, yeah. I said, yeah, whatever happened to that? Just kind of casual. He's like, dude, guess what? It's like, what?
He got off.
No. The money that he had in the bag and the money he had in the room, in the bedroom, that money he had just taken, he just got from a DA agent, an undercover drug enforcement agent, right?
Wow.
And they were tracing that money and tracking that money to see where his other affiliates were, right? And his organization. So they were tracing and tracking that money to see how he was spending it and where it was going. If me and my partner that day had decided to take some of that money, guess what? They knew obviously the feds knew how much money they gave them. So now when they're investigating, the agents, like federal agents, like, hey, I should have $100,000 in that bag.
Right.
No, actually there was only $60,000. They're like, no, that shouldn't be the case.
Well.
So they guess where's the rest of the money? Okay, the officers probably took it. So when he told me that laughing, he's like, yeah, that was actually Fed money, and they were trying to trace and track where he was sending that money.
Wow.
If I had stolen that money, if my partner had taken, or if we had decided to take that money, I'd probably be just getting out of prison today. Wow. And so that was a reminder to me that nothing is worth it. It's not worth it.
No, it's not.
And so
I don't throw rocks at the penitentiary.
No, not at all. Not at all. So these things do happen. So this is a testament of a person's integrity when you do this job. Unfortunately, Queen, what ends up happening, you have a lot of people who lack integrity in this job, and they find themselves getting in trouble, and they find themselves going to prison.
Yeah, and you know what? Speaking of integrity, it's the things that you do when you don't know that someone's watching that define you. Because we all are on our best behavior when everybody's looking.
This is true.
You know what I'm saying? This is true. Right? But here's what I want to ask you about that case. It was interesting. So what would have made that? Okay, let me put it this way. Because, in college, they told us about the fruits of the poisonous tree.
Yes.
So if you all had gone in there without having permission, without a warrant, and nobody had given you permission to be in there, and you found that, then what would happen?
Then all of it would be thrown out. He'd be a free man.
Right, because that happened to somebody about 10 years ago. Somebody had like 2 kilos of cocaine in their freezer. And the police came in, they didn't have a warrant, they were roughing the man up and looking all through the house, and they found it in the freezer wrapped in foil. But it all got thrown out. And I was like, that's crazy. My friend's like, how does that happen? I said, fruits of the poisonous tree.
Yep.
So what if, now here's another question. So what if, and I did learn this in school, but I can't remember, it's been so long ago. So if, let's just say, for example, if the police come to someone's house, right? And the person, because this has something to do with Terry Mapp. You know the case of Terry Mapp in Ohio? Terry Mapp, I believe that's the reason they started the fruits of the poisonous tree. Okay, so Terry Mapp was a woman that was in Ohio, I do believe, and she opened the front door. I can't remember if somebody called the police or for whatever reason the police came to her door. They knocked on it. She opened it, and she had marijuana on her table in plain sight. And they arrested her. But then they were told that they couldn't arrest her. They couldn't charge her because they had no business. You know, if she, even though it was in plain sight, they were not in her home. They didn't have any reason to search her home or any of those things. And so I think that's where that law came from, if I'm not mistaken. So is that still today? Like if somebody opens their door, because they don't do that here in Atlanta. I'm going to tell you how I know. So there was a case a few years ago where somebody called, it was a domestic dispute at someone's house, right? So a girl got into it with her boyfriend. Neither of them lived at the residence. Okay, so somebody called the police. The police came, and then the girl came to the door or whatever, and then the police came in and started searching. Now, I don't know why they were searching. They should have just taken the person, whoever started the argument, to jail is what I would think. But they came in, they started searching. They found a whole big bag full of marijuana, like a trash bag full. And so they arrested the homeowner. Now, the thing is, the homeowner did not give them permission to come inside the house. The girl who didn't live there did. So if someone who doesn't live at your residence, I'm sorry, how you going to tell somebody the police come in my house?
Yes, they cannot.
That's what I was saying. I told him, honey, you need to get a good lawyer, because I would be fighting that all the way, because that's crazy. Yeah, but they took the homeowner to jail. He wasn't at home, but when he got there before they left, and they quickly arrested him and confiscated his marijuana. But he know he was selling that, a whole trash bag. Yeah,
but you can get away with it. I've seen, and here's the problem with this too, and a lot of people I've seen and I've heard of cases like this where people have gotten away with murder literally because an officer did not do the proper steps. And you go and you search a person's car, there was a case, a court, and I don't remember the top of mine, but you guys can Google it. There was a court case where officers entered a home illegally doing a search. They were looking for a person. And during that time, because they went in and violated this person's rights, they did a search of the home illegally. They found a dead body in there.
What?
And they then charged the resident, the person with murder, of course. But when they started investigating and it went to court and they started showing all that evidence, they ended up having to drop the charges. You know, you can't it doesn't matter how severe the crime is. If you miss a step, everything is done. Everything is done. And so it was always taught to us that it's a very serious thing, the fruit of the poisonous tree.
That's right.
A person who doesn't live at a house cannot give you consent to search. You know, so if you already don't have even in a domestic, I've had cases in a domestic where there's multiple roommates and they all have different bedrooms. You have to get consent from each individual roommate because they are acting as individual tenants.
That's right.
In a room. And so there it gets tricky. You know, there's a lot of nuance to the law as it relates to searching. You just can't go in and just start searching stuff. I had a case though, and this is for those for our weed heads out here, depending on what state y'all live in. Let me give y'all some game. All right. We had a case where a lady and her boyfriend they weren't selling, they were growing marijuana for their personal use. That's what they told me. They had a plant on their balcony, right? And it was growing. They needed to get that natural sunlight, right? So I'm minding my own business, right? I'm doing some other stuff. And I'm like, what is that? Why is it so strong over here? And this was like 10 years ago. I'm like, why is it so strong over here? And I was there for some other reasons. Because that matters, right?
Right.
So people were reporting in the area that there was a strong, annoying odor, constantly reporting. So they call for us to do a check. And again, these are our people calling on our people, right? So I'm not there messing with folks. So I'm there so I'm just going around and I can't do anything because I can't get into people's home. Even if I can smell marijuana coming from the door, right? You need more. You need more to be able to get out. I can knock on the door, but if you don't answer, I can't kick the door open.
And so you have to have more than that to get a warrant, right?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. The judge won't give you that for that. So you have to build your case naturally.
Right.
So if you have that and the police knock on the door, don't answer the door. All right. So this little FYI, y'all, don't answer the door. So then I'm like, man, let me just go the other way. I'm going to take the shortcut because I didn't want to go back through the hallway. So I just got done. So I'm walking, I'm leaving. I'm like, wow, the smell's getting stronger. Like, damn, this shit is strong. And I look up on the second floor. Guess what I see? I see 3 marijuana plants on the damn patio in plain sight. Guess what, you guys? That's done. It's game over. That's free game. So now all I do is I'm like, oh, well, here's the problem right here. So I call for my coworker to stand by, watch the area. Then guess what I do? I go and get a search warrant. And what do I tell the judge? Hey, Your Honor, this is why I was here. Reports of this issue from the complex community, the manager. I did a search of the hallway, didn't find anything. Go outside, walk to the back. I see in plain view. That's the language. In plain view, I see marijuana plants. Well, the question is going to be, well, how you know that's not some orchid or something weird or whatever? Well, based on my training, my knowledge and experience with drugs and narcotics, I can positively identify from where I was at that this is marijuana. It's in plain view. So I have a search warrant, right? This is an apartment complex. All I do is contact the property manager and say, hey, can you guys let us in? Here's a search warrant copy. They approve it. Well, they don't necessarily approve it, but they look at it and they agree that this is a valid search warrant. They give me the keys to your apartment. Why? Because they don't want us kicking the door down. It's going to cost them money.
Exactly.
So I knock on the door because it's not a no knock. Boom, 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 boom. Police, police, police. Right? I already see the evidence. It's not a big deal. Make sure anybody's home. I even go on my way and say, can you call the resident? Resident said they're not home. Okay, cool. Go in there, unlock the door. We do a search. Take the evidence. Do a little documentation. Leave it out there. Wait for them to come home. Ask them a couple questions, and then we on our way. You know what I mean? And so, no one gets hurt. You know what I mean? Like there is this situation, and the situation was like a mirror lock, where the evidence they were looking for in a mirror lock's case was evidence in relation to a homicide, right? But the evidence they were looking for was like months later. They were doing a search warrant like a month later. So there wasn't any evidence that was sensitive to the point to where they would need a no-knock warrant and a mirror lock. You get what I'm saying? And so in situations like this, the officer's knocking on the door, normal business, normal operating hours, 5 afternoon or whatever, when you know people are awake.
Right.
That amount of time, them knocking on the door, getting access to would not have destroyed any of the case or the evidence. They're looking for clothes and anything related to the murder. So why would they need a no-knock warrant? You get what I'm saying? And so, in that situation, I mean, it's marijuana. I'm not going to ask a judge for a no-knock warrant and try to play, SWAT team, SEAL Team 6, because it's fun. And unfortunately, what ends up happening in these cases, officers are so junk, they're so adrenaline junk, where they're always looking for an opportunity to don on all that armor and equipment and carry the long gun. It becomes like trying to be in a video game.
Yeah, it's very obnoxious. Now, let me ask you this, since you brought up the SWAT. I just thought about this. Do you remember Corinne, what was her name? Corinne Gaines? The young lady, she was 23 years old, and the SWAT team killed her in her apartment. Now, she had gone to jail for failure to have a registration for her vehicle and no tag. I don't think she had a license either to drive. Now, she was going with that sovereignty stuff.
Oh, okay. She was a sovereign citizen.
Right. So she was going with the sovereignty stuff, and when they pulled her over, she was like telling them, I don't have to have this and that or whatever. So they arrested her, and she told them they were kidnapping her, which is what they were doing as far as I'm concerned. They took her to jail. Now, while she was in jail, they took her belongings and put them in a locker or whatever, I guess. When she was released and she went to get her things, well, they didn't give her a copy of the paper telling her when she had to come to court. So she asked them for it, and they were giving her the runaround. She recorded all of this, this is how I know. She was showing herself talking to them. Okay, so they're telling her, the guy at the front desk is telling her some excuse. I can't remember because it's been some years ago, maybe 2018 or 19. But nevertheless, they didn't give her any time frame for when she's supposed to return to court. So she says that for days she was calling, asking. So she ended up missing her court date. So that is a failure to appear, which is a misdemeanor, right?
Correct.
Even in some places like Nevada, Las Vegas, if you miss your court date, well, once you realize you missed it, even if they've already filed a warrant, all you have to do is go down there, because I know someone this happened to. All you have to do is go down there and tell them that, whatever the reason you missed it, and then pay the $200 that it cost them to file it or whatever, and then they'll just give you a new court date. They're not going to lock you up or any of that if you just go down there once you realize it. So with that all being said, why would they send a SWAT team to this woman's house for a misdemeanor charge? And they took her life. Now, I happen to believe that they did that because of her sovereignty. And why also do the police, maybe you can help me with this, why do they call, like, for example, if I wanted to file a lien on an officer, because I always say that. If the police mistreat me, I'm going to tell you right now, if the police mistreat me, you think you're going to do anything shady or against my rights and all of that, first thing I'm going to do is I'm filing a lien against their insurance, because I know you can't work without it. I know how it all goes. So,
you're so wrong for that.
that's the first thing I'm going to do, okay? That's the first thing. And I always tell people, instead of just suing the police department and the state or the city, sue the officer too for his pension, because he has one. Because he's still going to be working. They're not going to fire them 9 times out of 10 when they mess with people like us. So I always say sue them for their pension. Now, that's what Daniel, what's his name? Not Daniel Cameron. Benjamin Crump. That's what they did in the case of Derek Chauvin. His pension was worth $1.5 million. And that's the first time I've ever heard of a lawyer doing it. I think it was Benjamin Crump that was on that case. But so anyway, I had been saying that for years. Okay, so but here's the thing. I recently read that they call that paper terrorism. So they say when you file frivolous, what do you call it? Liens and stuff on police officers. Well, okay, well, who determines whether or not it's frivolous? Because if I feel like they did something against my civil rights or whatever and I want to file it, but they say that's paper terrorism. Also, when you fill out certain paperwork for your sovereignty, they say that's paper terrorism. Now, they come up with all these new terms just to try to scare people into not doing certain things. I'm going to tell you right now, I will plead sovereignty in a heartbeat. I've done it before. I don't pay traffic citations. You give me a ticket if you want to. You're just wasting your time and mine. Because all I'm going to do is go in the court and say, my honor, with all due respect, I do not wish to enter into a contract with this corporation. I would like to know if I'm free to go. Because I haven't done anything. I've committed no crime. And the last time I tried it, the judge over in Morrow County, he said, ma'am, are you an attorney? Because he kept asking my name. And I said, I represent Ahmadiyah Shakur. He said, well, are you her attorney? I said, no. Are you her? I said, I represent Ahmadiyah Shakur. I'm not going to say that I'm Ahmadiyah Shakur in the courtroom, because you know why? Because with the all caps, that's the straw person. Now, once you admit that the straw person is you, which it really isn't, that's why your name is in all caps and all that stuff. So I just get into all of that in the courtroom. I'm just saying. So now what they do, if I come in there, they'll make everybody else go before me, and they have me sit there and wait till the courtroom is clear, because people are like, what is she doing? Because I'm telling you, I had an $800 ticket, and I was determined I'm not paying y'all nothing but dust. I'm not paying you nothing but dust, okay? So I had an $800 ticket. Now, why was the ticket so high? Well, I'm glad you asked. Because they given me a ticket for something about my tag. I want to say the tag was, what was it? No, it was registered. I think it may have been like expired or something. But so they gave me a ticket, but they didn't give the ticket to me. They sent it to my address. I never heard of that. Now, I'm over there in Henry County. We all know how it goes down over there. I know you do, because you live in Atlanta. So they sent the citation to my home, but I had moved. Okay, I had moved to Cobb County, so I never got it. So they say that in 30 days, if you don't respond, I think they give you 30 to 90 days or something like that. I think it's So they didn't issue a warrant. What they did was it now goes up in price, because it would have normally been an $80+ ticket for whatever it was. But now, so I'm thinking, okay, so I was coming home one night and the officer pulled me over in that area because I was taking some college courses over there. So he says to me, you're not supposed to be driving because you had a citation, and he went to explain. I'm like, what? I didn't know what you're talking about. So then he says, well, I'm going to let you go ahead and go, but you have to come to court. And he gave me a ticket, which I didn't sign. I never signed the tickets. And so when I got home, I said, I'm just going to go online and pay this, because I don't feel like going to court trying to fight it. I get on there and see it's $847. I said, no, I'm not paying this. So when I get to court, that's when I went in there and I said, I would like to challenge the jurisdiction of this courtroom. My honor, with all due respect, I'm here in propria persona, and I would like to know who has the authority to preside over me. Who in here is in their sovereign capacity? I just have questions. And so the judge is like, ma'am. He said, you don't think you've done anything wrong? I said, I know I haven't. I have not broken any laws. Okay, so the prosecutor said something to me, and I'm not studying them because that's the prosecutor. I don't have to talk to you, so miss me with it. And I kept focusing on the judge. And so I already told him I'm not, and you know how they give you that little piece of paper? When you first walk in, you put guilty for your traffic ticket or whatever, put your information. I don't sign that either. Because once you sign anything, now you've entered into a contract with the corporation, and when you see that they have that corporate flag with the blue, it's navy blue with the fringe, that's a corporation. And that's why they give you your name in all caps on your license, because now this fictitious version of you, which is the straw man, when you go into the courtroom and they call your name Nathan Daley and you say, here, your honor, now you've already agreed that that's you. So now they can carry on as they want. But if you go in there and throw the, hit them with a loop and tell them, excuse me, yes, I represent AppQueenAShakur. That's what I'm doing. Ma'am, are you a lawyer? No. So I'm going to tell you what they did. It's all so crazy. I'm going to tell you what they did because they knew I was exposing the fraud, but I'm not here to expose the fraud. I'm just here to not pay this ticket. So they give you an outlet. They quietly give you an outlet to make it look like you in trouble so everybody else don't try what you're doing, and then they let you up out of there. So here's what they did. So the prosecutor comes over and puts a piece of paper in front of me and says, can you just please sign this so you can leave and we'll deal with this later? And I'm looking at it, it's nothing on there. It's the blank piece of paper. So I already know y'all just trying to cover up this whole fraud. Okay, I'll do it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to sign it, not saying I'm AppQueenAShakur. I'm going to sign it saying agent of AppQueenAShakur. So y'all can miss me with it. So as I'm leaving, now this was a black judge, but I do it with a white judge, an Asian judge. I've done it with all of them. So when I leave, this was the first time I did it. And honestly, I was nervous. They never knew. They never knew. Because I said to myself, I'm not paying this $800. They can miss me with it. And if I get away with it, I'm going to do this every time I get a ticket. So it worked. So as I'm leaving, right, there's two black people. They're young. They work at the front desk. And they heard everything that was going on. And they're like, ma'am. Oh, because this is what the judge said. I left this part out. So as I'm leaving, the judge, after I signed it, he said, oh, so you don't think you did anything? I said, I know I didn't. I have not done anything. I'd like to know if I'm free to go. He said, okay, go ahead and leave. You're free to go. I said, thank you. Have a good day. As I'm leaving, he said, but you're going to be arrested before the day's out. I kept walking. I didn't even look back. Yeah. And I'm saying to myself, can he arrest me? Can he arrest me? So then I said, nah, he can't arrest me. Because first of all, I showed up. I came and stated my presence. If I had not shown up, you could arrest me for failure to appear. But so as I'm leaving, these two, there's a young black lady and a black guy. They stopped me. They're like, ma'am, you heard what he said. He's going to lock you up. Go in there and pay it. If you don't have the money, they can put you on probation. You can pay monthly. I said, thank you, beloveds. I really appreciate you, but I'm not paying anything. Have a good day. And I went out of there. And I never heard from them again. They could miss me with it. And I'll tell you another thing, too. One time, my son was driving my car, my youngest son. And so he obviously went past the school bus arm. He said, now, I didn't know he did this until about maybe a month or so later. I get a citation for $250 in the mail. And then I knew I didn't do it. So I'm like, what did you do? And so they have a website. He couldn't lie because they have a website where you can go in there and see the video of what he did. So I asked him, were you speeding? What did you do? How did you go past the school bus arm? You know that's dangerous. And he was like, yeah, I was going to work. He said, but I went through before the arm went all the way down. I said, but yeah, you can't even go when it's coming down. So when I went and looked it up on the website, he was like 30 seconds. That's what it said. He missed it by 30 seconds. The arm started going down and he went. Yeah. Okay, but he was like, the doors of the bus weren't even open. I said, doesn't matter. They got you. I said, but don't worry, because I'm not paying it because it's my car. It's under my name and all that. And I'm not going to tell them who was driving because that's not my job. That's their job. Find out who it was. Okay, so I called them and I say, listen, I don't know what y'all are talking about. I didn't do this. I wasn't driving. And they were like, well, ma'am, who was driving? I said, I don't know. Isn't that your job? I mean, I'm not going to do your job for you. Yeah. Unless you're going to pay me, maybe. But I was like, you need to find out who was driving my car. They were like, well, ma'am, who all drives your car? I said, a myriad of people. I couldn't tell you. And then so the woman says, so you're not going to pay the citation? I said, no. And I said, I'm not going to pay it. So she says, well, if you want to contest it, you can come to court. I said, I'm not going to contest anything. I'm telling you, it's not up for discussion. I'm not paying it. Okay, so then about a week later, they sent me another one. And so I I took the citation, put it back in the envelope that it came in, and I put it in a manila envelope, and I typed up a letter of conditional acceptance. And I told them that I will gladly pay this citation just as soon as the officer who wrote this ticket shows his badge number, tells me who was driving, whether it was me or someone else, and once he does all of that, and you can prove that this is my ticket, that I committed this infraction, then I will gladly pay it. Until then, please don't contact me again. And I typed up a whole affidavit, and I signed it, and I also told them that if they weren't able to prove any of these things, and they continue to send me these citations, I'm going to have to sue them for harassment at this point. And so after that, I never heard anything else.
You know what's funny though is a lot of things happen because people don't stand up and say anything.
Yeah.
To be honest, yeah, that's interesting. It's one of those things. Even like I've come across a lot of sovereign citizens. I'm gonna tell you where sovereign citizens get it wrong. Two things. One, they think they know what they're talking about. They don't, and they get themselves caught up.
Yeah.
Two, they try to respond in the moment with physical force. And that's why a lot of them end up getting hurt and getting locked up. You can't, unfortunately, you can't have court on the street. And you have.
I always tell people that you can't.
You can't do it, man. You cannot. You can't. You cannot do it. It doesn't end well. And not only that, you might come across white, black, Asian, Hispanic, an officer who is really uneducated in the law.
That's right.
And I know we all know this, especially over here on your channel, that there are officers who are ignorant to the law that they're enforcing.
That's right.
And if you try to challenge one and make them look stupid, unfortunately, you have some officers out here that they get their ego bruised, and you're getting hurt. It just is what it is, and it's not okay. It's not fair. It's not right. But that's what ends up happening. And an officer with an ego problem is probably the most dangerous officer you can come across.
Absolutely. And that's why I always tell people, do your battles in the courtroom, not on the side of the road. Yeah. I'm not going to sit on the side of the road and argue law with the police. That's what I'm not going to do. You can say whatever you want. You want to give me the ticket, go ahead, because I already know I'm not going to pay it, so I don't have to argue. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, that is true. A lot of them, I've seen people sit there and the officers are threatening to bust their windows out and all that, and they still sitting there. And I saw this one couple. I felt so sorry for them. They were trying to plead sovereignty and all of this, and sitting there saying, they weren't driving. They say they were traveling.
They're traveling, yeah.
And so now that's the law, Nathan. Y'all need to quit being shady, because y'all know good and darn well that's the law. Y'all know it. You're only driving if you're operating under commerce. So a mail courier, UPS, FedEx, those people are drivers, and they have to abide by getting the license plates, the registration, all that. Now, if somebody's traveling from point A to point B, we're supposed to be free to travel.
That's what it says.
But y'all will hit somebody upside their head y'all will hit somebody upside their head if they don't do it. See, that's what I'm not going to do, though. See, if they tell me some mess like that, I never had that type of encounter. Because I get my license and I get my registration insurance, because I just don't look for trouble. I don't go out looking, because I feel like when you do that now, you're just asking for trouble, because it's going to be some trouble. So, but the thing is, when these things happen, they should just go ahead and take the consequence right there and then go deal with it in the courtroom. That's the smart way to do it. Absolutely. You can't sit there and tell them, well, I'm not getting out of my car. I don't have to have no license. Well, some officers don't even know what you're talking about when you bring that stuff up.
That's very true.
You sound crazy. You don't need a license. I hear it all the time.
Yeah, we used to, it became such a problem because a lot of them were getting hurt, like really hurt, that they end up mandating in my department that we all take a class on it to understand what to look for. Because then also you'll have people who will just be saying stuff. Because then now what they're doing is they're running lights. They're just, like you said, they're putting themselves
and other people in danger.
Yeah, and then
now that's just ignorance. Yeah.
And there you go. And so what ends up happening is it becomes a justification to do what I want to do. And you know how that goes. That's not going to work.
Well, somebody just asked a question. Bree wants to know about probable cause and as it pertains to searching vehicles. Okay, so I know a little trick. That cops do. Y'all have lots of tricks, but but here's the main one. Okay, they be like, I smell something in here. It smells like some marijuana. So, I got a trick for them too. See, if you got tricks, I got tricks. Let's get it popping. So when they come up to my...
Let's act it out. Let's act it out.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, you ready? Whoop, 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 whoop. All right, I'm about to pull up on you. How you doing, lovely lady? How you doing today? The reason why I stopped you.
Oh, I haven't a clue. I haven't done anything wrong, officer. Why would you stop me?
Because you was looking very attractive, and I just thought it might have been a good idea to. Okay, ma'am, I pulled you over because your taillight is out on your vehicle. Hold on 1 second, man. It smell like you got some marijuana in the car.
Of course not. Why would I ever do that? That's illegal.
Well, my nose is telling me that there's something in here. My nose knows that something's in this car. You don't smoke? Haven't smoked?
No, sir.
All right, look at me with them eyes. Let me see if I see some redness in there.
No, sir. I don't
You
smoke.
got no
My
redness?
eyes are always red because I'm tired.
Okay. Are you tired? You've been working late?
I have several things that I have to do throughout the day.
Okay. All right. Well, this is what I'm gonna do, ma'am. You're saying there's no drugs, there's nothing legal in the vehicle? 'Cause
That's
I smell
nothing
something.
in here.
Nothing at all. No incense. I'm smelling something. It smells a little weedish.
Absolutely not.
No? All right. Well, listen, I got a buddy. His name is K9 Jenkins, okay? I'm going to bring K9 Jenkins in here. I'm going to have him sniff around your car.
Okay.
And if he alerts, then by law, I have a right to search your vehicle.
Right.
All right. You okay with that?
Sure. Knock yourself out.
All right. So in a situation like that, this and thank you for the role playing, my dear. Thank you. You're absolutely right. The best thing to do is deny, but there's two problems. An officer can get a canine dog, right? And this is just information for the audience. An officer can get a canine dog. An officer also, by law, if they can justifiably smell the odor of marijuana, and this is a state where marijuana is illegal, that officer has justification to do a search of the vehicle for marijuana. Here's the problem, though. The challenge that the officer is going to have is, one, is he being honest? Is he or she even being honest, or are they fishing, right? Unfortunately, yes, you do have some officers that'll make something up. And then you have some officers that are going to be honest. This is all going to come down to the actual driver. It is on you. If you know, and I tell people this all the time, if you know you riding dirty, it's in your best interest to not go out your way to make the officer's job difficult, right? And I'm saying this for a couple different reasons. If you know for a fact, I've had people challenge me where I've said, and here's another thing you guys can use. Let me give you some game. I had a guy do this, and it was legit. And I'm the type of officer, if I don't have solid evidence, I don't push it. I wanted no problems, right? And I always like legitimate cases. And so, because when you go to court, you guys, what you guys don't end up seeing is when these attorneys are tearing these officers apart on the stand. I got drugged one time by an attorney, and I said, never again will I ever be embarrassed like that. It doesn't feel good. And so, but anyways, this particular time I pulled a guy over. I believe he had marijuana in the car based on what I could smell. Marijuana smells different based on whether it's burned or whether it's fresh. Fresh marijuana smells different. So this gentleman was like, I said, hey, I smell some marijuana in here. You got some marijuana? He said, nah. I don't smoke, officer, but I was around some friends who do smoke, but I myself don't smoke. That's what you were smelling. And I'm like, okay. Now this is what he's telling me. I have to respect what he's giving me. Especially in my mind, I'm acknowledging that, okay, yes, this doesn't smell fresh. It smells like burnt marijuana. Like, okay, I said, so you weren't smoking in the car? No, I promise I don't do that. I said, okay, do you mind if I take a look inside the car, right? So here's the next piece, right? If I don't have enough evidence, I have to ask you for permission to search your vehicle. I can't then just go and do it on my own, right? If I don't have enough evidence, I have a right to ask, you have a right to deny. And in this moment, the gentleman said, officer, honestly, I don't mind, but I don't want you to. So I said, okay, I respect that. He said, only because I got something to do, and I don't really feel like waiting, and I really don't want you to search my car. I don't want to give you permission. I said, brother, I respect that 100%. I said, so you sure there's no marijuana? He said, no, I'm positive there's not. And I said, okay. And so what I did in that moment, I respected that position that he took. and I ended up giving him a warning for the reason why I pulled him over. So, you know, he was respectful. I didn't try to overextend my power and authority, because when you do that, things start getting a little slippery. If I would have brought a dog out, the dog may or may not have alerted on the car. If the dog didn't, here's the problem. I wasted this man's time, right? I have to also weigh how long it's going to take for the dog to get here. So in a case like that, you have an officer that's threatening to do a search. They smell something. My thing is, if you know there's something in there, just give it up, get the ticket. Because a lot of times what ends up happening when you make the officer extensively go out his way to do something, the supervisor will require that you take them to jail because you wasted officer resources when you knew you had something.
That you had something all along.
Just go ahead. I have given more people. I had a brother I pulled over. He had a jar of marijuana, and he told me, he was very honest. I said, hey, I smell it, fresh marijuana. He said, officer, okay, I do got something in there. I said, okay. He said, listen, just hand it over. Everything's cool. You honest? I'm cool. We can work something out. He handed me the marijuana. He's like, man, I'm on my way back home delivering groceries, for the family. I got the kids. This is for personal use. I know it's a lot in this little mason jar. And I'm looking at it like, I didn't even want to weigh it, because if I weigh it, the charge might change. So I said, listen, man, this is what I'm going to do. All right. I said, that's a lot of marijuana. My supervisor is not going to allow me to bring this back with you not being in handcuffs going to jail. So he was like, when brothers did, they do that thing when they drop their head down. I said, but this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do. Because you were so honest and you were cool, you were respectful, so forth and so on, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make this a misdemeanor citation. And I'm going to put this I'm going to give you a signature bond. For those who are not familiar with a signature bond, this is the best gift an officer can give you, all right, or a judge. A signature bond, or we call it a ROI, or ROR. I can't remember what the abbreviations are, but release on your own recognizance.
Right. Yeah.
So I gave him a signature bond. That is a privilege. That is a gift that officers can give. Sometimes ask, hey, officer, listen, let's make a deal. All right. If I give this up, can you give me a signature bond? Can you, let me get out. I'm not a bad guy. I don't want to miss work. People will be honest. I always respect people who are just honest and transparent. And 9 times out of 10, you get an officer that's cool, they're going to honor your request and take those things into consideration. And sometimes you're going to get an asshole. There's no way around that. But I gave that brother a signature bond. He was in and he was out, and everybody's happy. My supervisor was happy. I charged him with a citation misdemeanor. He was able to sign himself out. No warrants, not on his record. And with it being on a citation, it's not something that, it makes it less of a big deal. And so he didn't have to pay anything. And that's the other thing with the signature bond. The signature bond, you don't have to pay anything to get out of jail.
To get out, that's right. And you don't have to sit there in any of that stuff.
You don't have to sit there.
Just go ahead and about your business. Well, that was nice of you, because a lot of officers wouldn't have done that. But here's the thing. So let's say that, and this is for the benefit of the people in the chat. So let's say that the cops want to search the car, and the person says, no, what's your probable cause? And they don't have any probable cause. They just want to search the car. And then so they ask you to get out. Or sometimes I've seen them just tell people to get out of the car.
Yes.
And then when the person gets out, they want to start searching. So you know what? I have a little trick for that too. So when I get out of the car, and there's never anything in my car, because like I said, I don't throw rocks at the penitentiary. But I'm also not going to let you just do stuff just because you think you can get away with it. Not with me.
Right.
So if they should say get out of the car, well, I'll get right out of the car, and I will hit the lock, and then I would drop my keys on the floor and step out. Now, if you want to go in there, you have to break a window or something.
Right.
And, I have insurance, so go right ahead. But that's just going to further prove that you illegally searched. You didn't have probable cause, and I didn't give you permission. Because they do all kinds of shady stuff. But here's another thing, too. So when you said you pulled up on me and you smelled the marijuana, well, in real life, that would likely never happen, because I don't carry marijuana in the car. But the cops will, some of them will lie, like we know. So that's why if I get pulled over for a traffic citation, I only let my window down about this much. And some cops get so annoyed, but they're like, let the window down so you can hear me. I can hear you just fine, sir.
Yeah.
Because that way you don't give them the ability to tell that lie. Because what do you smell? The window's cracked. And you still can get everything right out. I can just pass it on to you. So that's another thing you all can do, guys. Terry said Queen has lots of tricks.
She got. Listen, you guys, and some tricks are for kids now. I'm gonna tell you which ones. Don't push, but
No, know what you're doing. But let me say this. Let me say this, Nathan. I went to college for law because I knew at an early age that black people don't know the law.
This is very true.
Black people it's so ingrained in many people, not just black people, but it's ingrained in a lot of people that anytime the police pull you over or if they're going to arrest you, that they have to read you your rights. No, they don't. They only have to read you your rights when they're going to interrogate you and start asking you questions.
After you are under arrest.
Right.
Only after you are in custody.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And if at any point during the interrogation you request your attorney, all of that has to stop. Can't keep asking you questions.
Correct. And here's what happens when we say fruits of the poisonous tree, you guys. Mm-hmm. If you are arrested and you're in handcuffs, if you say anything on your own free will, that can be used against you in the court of law. Even if I didn't Mirandize you, right? I don't have to read you there's plenty of people. That's why your attorney, shout out to the lead attorney. He always does this right here, right? Yeah. He says, shut up, shut your mouth, stop talking, right? Because what ends up happening is spontaneous utterance is what we call it in the court of law. So I'll have a case. I put you in handcuffs, and I swear them things are like truth serum, boy. Hey man, I ain't even do it, shawty. I would tell you it was Quintavious. Quintavious had it. He got one right now. You know, so they hit you with that. So, and I'm just like, man, listen, bro. It's good, man. I don't even want to talk about it right now. So I try to downplay. This is the tactics I use. I downplay, act like I don't want to hear. Nah, bro, we just going to jail. I don't want to hear what you got to say. Bro, I'm trying to tell you right now. Okay, I was in the house. But I ain't even take nothing shot at you. So what ends up happening, spontaneous utterance is when you on your own free will, I never asked you nothing, right? But your name and your address. Mm-hmm. And you are trying to state and tell the case on your own. Now, I have a body camera. You're just saying all the things you need to say. All the things you need to say. And so depending on the type of case I'm working, I will tell them to shut up because I don't want them to ruin my case. Mm-hmm. I will say, okay, listen, do you want to talk to me about what happened? Mm-hmm. They're like, yes, officer, I want to talk to you. All right. Well, first thing I do is I ask them for their age. I ask them for their highest level of education. Why do you think I'm asking them that? Because
to see their competence.
There you go.
To understand and comprehend.
There you go. Because you guys, what ends up happening is when an attorney gets a case, and they're like, okay, I want to see how good this officer is. You know, the first thing they say is, hey, my client dropped out of elementary school. So the officer asking him the question, he don't got enough sense. So another thing they'll ask is, or I'll ask them, have you been drinking? Have you done any drugs or anything like that within the last 2 hours? Why am I asking that? Again, you're not going to be able to give consent or tell a coherent story if you are intoxicated. Under the influence, you go, under the influence of any type of drug or narcotic. So while I'm talking, now these brothers just want to be free, right? They don't want to, I didn't do the shooting. I didn't do it. He did it, but I was with him. So they want to clear their name ASAP Rocky, right? They trying to get this thing out. They're not trying to go to jail. So I know that. So, but then I say, okay, that's okay. How old are you? Okay, you're 18 years old. Okay, this is an armed robbery case I'm investigating. I asked him his age, his highest level of education. I asked if he's intoxicated or under the influence of any type of drugs. He's like, nah, shawty, nah, I'm good. I was like, cool. All right, sir, I have to read you your rights. And then after I read you your rights, you let me know if you understand them. And if you say you understand them, I'm going to ask you some questions if you are willing to have a conversation with me. All right? Mm-hmm. He says, okay, sir, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and be used against you in the court of law. You have a right to an attorney. If you don't and can't afford an attorney, one will be provided to you. So I go through the whole thing, and I always read off of the card, even though I know it by heart. I take my card out because in court, the attorney will challenge you. I read off the card. I'll also show them the card and say, okay, can you read it to yourself? Do you understand what you are? Yes, I understand. Then all this is captured on body camera, and then I'll start asking questions. Well, first I'll say, do you want an attorney present with you, or do you want to just go ahead and let's get it cracking so you can get home and get back to your mom and them, right? Mm-hmm. They're like, nah, I'm trying to get home to mom and them. So, I add that in there to remind them. Obviously, it's a trick of the words, right? Like,
right.
But again, my job is to catch criminals, you guys, right? So
That's right.
Again, these are the things that we use. These are the tactics. So once you do that and you start sharing information, that information is legally, I can use that in the court of law. That is your statement. That's your statement that can be used. And this is funny that we're talking about this because this leads into another case with the FedEx case, right? Where a statement and testimony was made and the detective
didn't give it to the prosecutors. Now, what's that all about? Let's elaborate on that, because that's what. Hold on, let me address something real quick. Honey 69 said, knowing your age and high school education makes you competent. No, but it would give a reasonable person the idea or impression that you likely are able to comprehend and understand what is being said to you. Correct. Now, if it could be someone who is autistic, or someone who is mentally impaired. There could be a myriad of reasons why you may not understand, and you could be just uneducated and not just be that smart too. Some people have the mental capacity of someone that is they don't use the word retarded anymore, but someone who is like mentally slow. Okay, there was a guy that, matter of fact,
mentally challenged is what they were
right, mentally challenged, right? Because there was a guy who was on death row and his IQ was like a 60. So that's mentally incompetent. You're like, how did this man get on death row? But that was years ago when that happened, before they started getting more strict about, checking people's competency. But please go ahead. This sounds interesting.
Yeah, and so just to piggyback on what you said, that is more so a defense for the state, the prosecutors,
right,
for the lady, for whoever asked that question, because the defense will say that my client was not
in their right mind.
In their right mind, they weren't aware enough. They were intoxicated. Just like within intercourse, you can't give consent if you're intoxicated. That's a law here in Georgia. So that goes the same thing. I can't give you a statement about what happened when I'm not in my right mind. And so that is a very powerful defense that can be used in court, and it has worked. And so that's why, for practice, when we're investigating crimes, we make sure we get that out the way. So that can't be used as an excuse.
Right.
So let's dive into the FedEx case. For those who don't know, you want to give them a brief intro on it, and then.
Right. Okay. So everybody here probably knows, but DeMontario Gibson is the young man who was shot at by Gregory Chase and his son Brandon Chase. Okay, when he was driving for FedEx. Now he had on a full-on FedEx uniform, but he was driving. I forget what kind of truck it was that he was driving.
Truck, I think, or Hertz.
Right.
Truck.
A Hertz truck, I think it was.
Yeah.
Right. And so he dropped off a package and they impeded his him leaving. They got in front of him. Then they shot at him. They followed him shooting and all of that. And there was holes in the packages, and the FedEx truck to verify this had happened. Now, the thing is, when they were in court, they said that the reason they did that is because they were afraid. They didn't know what he was there for. He wouldn't tell them why he was there and all this. Like, he has to answer to them for one. But okay, that explains why you were curious. But why did you shoot at him, though? So you just shoot at people because they don't answer your questions? But so basically now he's been fired from his job, and the case resulted in a mistrial, which they're going to try it again likely. But let's not forget that those two people that did this, remember, they have family ties to the police department. Because that all came out in the beginning of the case, that there's someone that is related to them. Maybe, I think it's more than even one person that works with law enforcement. So I think that had something to do with it too. But I just thought it was very interesting that right after, then his job tells him he's fired. Then they tried to, gloss over it by saying, well, we actually fired you July the 27th, and we're going to notify you on July the 31st, but we couldn't get in touch with you. Well, that's all BS, because FedEx, they didn't have his address at the end of the day. And then also, they usually, when they terminate someone from FedEx or UPS, they usually send you certified mail.
So this is an interesting case because I had the privilege of actually meeting DeMontario.
Right, because he was at Michi's Black Agenda. That's right.
Yep. So I had a chance to hear his story up front and meet him. And there's a couple things with this case, just to give you guys. There's a couple things. Let me start with the probable cause. I think I was supposed to answer that. So from the traffic stop situation, kind of what is probable cause, and we'll dive into this. So you guys, probable cause is when there's two concepts. There's articulable, reasonable suspicion, and then there's probable cause. These are fact-finding requirements that police officers need to do investigations. So articulable suspicion is when an officer just has a hunch that, or a suspicion that based on what they see and what's been told or what they're observing, that a reasonable person will believe that a crime might be occurring, right? Like that, it's based on a hunch, a suspicion. So that would be like this. If it is 12 o'clock in the morning or 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm driving my car and my police car, and I see at this home, in a residential home, I see a body hanging out of the window, trying to climb through the window. Well, at 1 o'clock in the morning, that is suspicious. So as an officer, the first thing that I want to do is, that is enough evidence based on what I see, or it's enough suspicion for me to go and investigate, right? It's not enough for me to pass judgment and say there's a burglary. It's enough for me to say, let me see what's going on, right? That's suspicion. So in that moment, I don't have enough evidence to say or suggest that a crime is occurring. There's a possibility that there might be a crime occurring or about to occur.
Right, because somebody...
Right.
I was going to say somebody could have been locked out and they're trying to climb in through the window. Yeah. I've done that before.
Me too. I've been caught coming out some windows back in the day. Look.
Not coming out some windows.
Out some windows. So let me tell myself. So there's I tell us, I'm too grown to be coming out these windows.
Okay.
So
it's all nefarious.
So this is so now I'm an officer. I go to the person. I say, hey man, everything good? And the person jumps out the window. Hey officer, how's it going? I'm like, hey, what's up? You climbed through the window? He says to me, oh, I'm locked out. I live here, right? So I'm like, okay, do you have any ID? I don't have it on me, officer, right?
It's in the house.
So I'm like, okay, this is a real scenario now.
Okay,
so you live here. Are you the owner of this residence? Nah, it's my auntie house. Okay. But you live here? Yeah, I live here. I live here and blah blah blah. Okay, cool. I said, what's the address to this house? Right now, I know the address because I checked before. And he's looking like, matter of fact, what street is this that we're on? And then you start, well, how long you been living here, sir? Man, I told you.
Those are good questions.
Right? So then I'm looking around, I see a bag off to the side. Right?
Uh-oh.
And I'm like, is that your bag? And then you see the hand shaking, right? Well, guess what I do? All right, man, this is what we're going to do. He turns around, tries to run. Guess what? I grab him. His attempt to flee is
everything you need
evidence, right?
Yeah.
So now, what is my probable cause? The probable cause is you can almost say there's a probability, there's a high probability based on the facts and the evidence that I observe, a reasonable person will believe that a crime is either occurring, has occurred, or is about to.
That's right.
So it's the difference is the first one is suspicion and the second one is evidence. I have evidence that is suggesting that a crime is occurring. The bag, he doesn't know he said he lives here. He said he's lived there for a long time. He doesn't know the address, doesn't know anything about it, doesn't know the name of the person who lives at the house. He couldn't give me the name. And then he tried to flee. Come to find out he was breaking into the home.
Wow.
So that's the difference, you guys. So just to kind of give an understanding, because now we're about to explain this FedEx case. I'm going to talk a lot about evidence and how evidence is acquired.
Okay.
Now, this case here, this is what they told them. And this is why I'm explaining the whole thing about suspicion and then probable cause. These clowns, these two white guys, are living in a neighborhood. They witness, right, the victim in a truck, in a Hertz truck. He's delivering packages to a home that these two white guys are familiar with to a degree. They say they know who lives there, and they see a black man walking from that location and getting in a truck. In their mind, they believe, or this is what they told the police, they believe that he was burglarizing that house. That's what they told the cops, right?
So you're really going to commit a burglary in a big old Hertz truck that sticks out like a sore thumb. But continue.
Now, I agree with that, but I'm gonna tell you, it's been done. But it's been done, and it's not even so much that it's been done. The reality is, the vigilantism that takes place on the sense of entitlement that we see a lot of white people have when they believe that they are the security of their neighborhood. When the perception of black skin to them means that their crime is taken. See, their evidence is the skin color. Right. Their evidence is the threat, and the evidence of a crime to them is skin color, not behavior. Right. And so he gets in his truck. He's trying to leave. They try to close him in with their car, keep him from leaving. Somehow, I don't know all the details of it, but eventually they start firing shots into the truck.
Yeah, that's the gist of it.
That's just the gist of it. You guys, that's aggravated assault. That's aggravated assault, and then that's also false imprisonment. This is an easy case. Now, that's pretty much how it went down. And if I'm not mistaken, there were some also racial statements that were made on their part to the victim, where they said some racist statements towards them. You can almost argue that this is a possibly could be considered a hate crime.
Absolutely, what I said. They tried to Ahmaud Arbery him.
Yes, exactly. So now we have this. We fast forward. This is going to trial. To me, this is an easy case, slam dunk. Somehow, some way, there's a mistrial, and I'm listening to why this happened. And a mistrial, you guys, is basically when, basically when the jury can't figure out, based on the evidence, whether or not they can't come to a conclusion. They're looking at the evidence and like, based on this, we don't know. We call like a hung jury. You have some that agree and some that don't agree on the charges. Based on this, though, what ended up happening, this all came down to the police department and the investigation. The detective either intentionally did what he did,
I believe it,
or he's an idiot.
Probably both.
I think he intentionally threw this case.
I think so.
Does this mean because of mistrial that these guys go away scot-free? No. It just means that they're going to have to get a whole new set of juries to look at this case, because now there was evidence that was withheld on purpose from, which I believe was, you can't mess, there's no way he could have messed this up at all.
Right.
And because if he has tried a case before, and this is in Cobb County, if he had tried a case before, there's no way he made this big of a mistake. And so he needs to be demoted or fired if they find out that this was intentional. And so here's the thing. He did not give the defense and the state the actual interview of the suspects to them so that they can analyze it. Well, that's key evidence, right?
Yes, because what they said immediately following is likely not what they said in the courtroom. Because now they've been coached by their attorneys, and now they've had time to gather their thoughts and come up with the whole story. In the heat of the moment, when you first are confronted by the police right after something happens, you may not have all your lies together.
That's correct.
All your lies together. So
that's correct. He then also testified to statements that tainted the jury, right? And I can't remember exactly what it was. I know what it was in reference to, but I don't know how he actually testified to it. That created a complication. He started speaking towards weapons and bullet casings that were found. And depending on the context of how it was presented, would be an issue, right? So I don't know what context it was. I didn't see the whole trial play out. But what they are saying that caused an issue for this mistrial was, one, withholding that key evidence, which is the recorded statement of the suspects, and then also speaking to events of the case that he shouldn't have spoke to, that may or may not have tainted the jury. So the state, check this out. No, it was, now I can't remember. I believe it was the state that requested the mistrial, not the defense. But I can't remember which one, so don't quote me on it. But to me, I thought that was very interesting. I want to say the state said we need a mistrial, and then the defense was like, no, we don't. You know, let's go ahead and try it and get this over with. I believe they're stalling for a reason. And I know these guys are not in jail. I wonder if they're going to try to skip town. That is the first when I heard this a mistrial, and I heard why it was a mistrial. I was like, how he botched this up?
Right. I mean, it was
How do
so
you forget to
simple.
but how does this? But here's the other thing. The reason why I think there's something more to it. As the state prosecutor, you've tried plenty of these cases before too, and this is a big county. It's not like a rinky-dink small town. You know that investigators have recordings and interviews. Why would you not ask for it?
Right.
So-
When you get into discovery.
You should have got it and asked for it. That is an essential standard piece of evidence that's consistent with every single case. This is a shooting. So as a prosecutor, you mean to tell me you this whole time
it never dawned on you
never dawned on you?
No, come on, that's all on purpose.
Yeah.
They know that's one of the first pieces of evidence that they
is.
want is the recordings of the interrogation.
Yep.
So it was all by design. You know what? They might skip town. But you know, it was shady stuff like this going on with the Ahmaud Arbery, if you recall, between the father and son.
Yeah.
The prosecutor was friends with them. The father used to work with the prosecutor's office.
Yes.
And then even the next prosecutor was friends with them too. So both of those prosecutors had to recuse themselves.
It was bad. That was bad. And
this is the good old boy system, Nathan.
Well, and this is why, and again, I like to talk about these things. And then I like to talk about the solutions and how to fix it, because it's one thing for us to always analyze the problem, and it's another thing for us to
hold on. Michi says, Michi's in here. Hey, Michi. Michi said that the state has been protecting them. They come from one of the most powerful families there and have relatives in the police system there. I told you.
That would make sense.
Yeah, I told you.
So remember what I told you. That
Thank you, Meech.
When I tell you there's a hierarchy to corruption. Not just because you're white and you're a cop doesn't mean you could just be corrupt and get away with it. You guys, you have to know somebody, right? We've been talking about the case involving Tory Lanez and
Meg Thee Stallion. Let's talk about that. So did Tory do it or no?
Based on on the evidence that I read.
Don't make me fight you on this channel, Nathan.
No, listen.
I'm joking. Go ahead.
There's two problems I have with this case.
Okay.
This thing within our community about not snitching and we're not going to cooperate with the police, that's what messed Tory up, right? There's a good chance that he probably did not shoot her. He had gun residue on himself as well as the other female. There's an argument that could be made that he could have been fighting the gun off the girl, right? Based on what the witness said about him and about Meg and the girl fighting, prior to him getting out of the car and then the gun goes off, they saw the muzzle flash not near Tory. So, but this is the witness, right? Then
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then you have Meg Thee Stallion. She's lying to the police saying she stepped on glass. And then the original X-rays get tied up, and then a new doctor says something different, and they're saying that there's bullet fragments in her leg. Bullet fragments don't work like that, right? The bones are too small for there to be a bunch of bullet fragments, unless listen. All I'm saying is he hurt himself, and then after the fact, he goes on. He starts making rap songs about her and all this stuff. He did this. He did this crazy himself. So he's heavily intoxicated. He gets out the car and he starts getting into a physical altercation with a bunch of females. Right? Even the witness says he saw a small person jump out the car as these two girls are fighting.
Not a small person.
And you can't make this up. He doesn't know who he's looking at. He said, I just saw a small body, look like a child, jump out the car and then start interacting with the women who were beating each other up. And then they see a muzzle flash. So, and then the witness is saying that the small person is shooting in the air and doing all. So, I mean, honestly, I think that he put himself in a very uncompromising position. And at the end of the day, when you do stupid things, you leave your life and your freedom up to chance for juries, for the public opinion.
Right.
That's why I always tell people, even dealing with the police, comply to survive, because you can act and think that you're doing something right, But now you leave it up to the hands of other people to
Other
decide
people who weren't there, they just got to
who
try to
weren't
figure it
there.
out. Yeah.
There you go. And they're
Because-
going to make a decision. And it's
Yeah,
to me,
because
it's a gamble.
my decision was that Tory Lanez was guilty.
Mm-hmm.
Because, now see, I didn't know this witness said that, but here's the thing. I had somebody, I dropped a link because somebody was in the chat the day that I reported on it. They said, no, Queen, he's guilty. He's not guilty. He's innocent. And I said, well, if he didn't shoot her, who did? And so I dropped the link. They gave a very compelling argument, but I wasn't going for it. And I told them if I ever need co-counsel, I look them up. But here's the thing, though. So now my question was to them, if Tory didn't shoot Megan, then I'm sure he should know who did. So if that girl did it, because they say both of them had the gunpowder residue in their hands, right?
Yes.
So my first question was, why didn't he just tell on her? If this is between me and you going to jail and I didn't do anything, I'm sorry. Y'all, here he is, officer. Nathan Daley, that's him. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, if you didn't do anything. And then second of all, my question was, now what made me not too sure about it is because in the beginning, they actually said that Tory had offered the girl some money. I think she said that. She said that he was going to pay her bills or do something for her monetarily. And I said, well, why is he doing that? Because they said she was supposed to be a witness. So I felt like, okay, now he's trying to bribe a witness. So that's what made it suspicious. But then, as far as Megan lying about the glass, now, I believed her when she said that the reason she told them it was glass is because it's the police out there with guns and they're black. And she doesn't want to say there's a gun in the car. She's thinking they're going to get killed.
She's an idiot. Let me tell you, because the police are there because they know gunshots went off. Some people called. Remember, this shooting happened in a wealthy
Oh, that's right, in a
neighborhood.
very nice, down the street from Kylie Jenner's house.
This is Kylie Jenner in them neighborhood.
Right.
So they already are there. That's why when you saw the video, they're already at gunpoint, ordering them to walk backwards. And you see Meg hopping and she's bleeding on the thing.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, I heard the lie that she told. And again, this goes back to all this. What she said was, this was in the height of George Floyd. Mm-hmm. And she didn't want, and then she originally told them that she didn't know who shot her. And then she goes on stand and says, no, I know who shot her. It was Tory. Tory shot me. I saw him do it. And so I think that regardless of what happened, he put himself in this. He put himself in this situation because he could have won. First, he shouldn't have been arguing, yelling, and scrapping with women in the first place.
Right.
Two, you see women fighting. I don't know why a gun got brought out in the first place. That's neither here nor there. But the reality of this, at the end of the day, if he knew what happened, he should have cooperated with the police. Why?
Absolutely.
Not because he's a snitch, but because he's a multimillionaire. He's a professional. He has a life. He has business. He has family.
Yeah.
All that. So he jeopardized all of that.
He's sitting there thinking because he's a rapper and he don't want to be labeled a snitch. Now you're sitting in prison. You might be in there for a whole 10 years. Now here's the next question, Nathan. Mm-hmm. So, do you think Megan knows that Tory didn't really shoot her? And if so, why wouldn't she tell on Kelsey? Because I know she doesn't still think that woman's her friend, does she?
Man, I don't know. None of this stuff makes sense because what they end up going off of, the strong evidence that they use the text message that Kelsey texted the bodyguard said Tory shot Meg. That was within maybe like 3 minutes from the incident. Okay. So they're like, these are her spontaneous utterances, right? Meaning they came out so naturally, she didn't have time to put anything together. And then the second one is, there was another one. She sent the text message that they're using that, and then she told the police. She told the police that she didn't do it, and I believe she told the police that Tory did, if I'm not mistaken. There was something else in there.
Why does she need immunity though, Kelsey?
I think because it could be something that she did that could have gotten her arrested. Probably the assault on Meg.
She may have shot her if that's the case. Because why would you need immunity?
Tory messed up. He should have just kept it honest from the jump. Because honestly, the way the game goes, you guys, who tells first lives last.
It's the one that's gonna get the best deal.
You get the best
deal. That's just how
deal.
it goes. That's the one that's gonna get the best deal. Because as soon as you start talking, then the other person coming, that's too late now. We already got what we need.
He should have just went ahead and been like, man, this is what happened. This is how it went down. This is what was going on. Now, after everybody's turning on everybody, now you can't trust anybody's story. So even the girl went on the stand and she changed her story. Oh, that's what it was. They were playing her statement because she refused to testify. But so they played her statement that she gave to the police, which was a contradiction to what she was testifying on the stand, and she can't do that. And so I believe she was pleading the fifth because some people do it, they don't understand what it means. But it just means that you can testify without incriminating yourself. So whatever was going on, she wanted to avoid being self-incrimination. But if she was a part of the shooting, she's not going to be able to not incriminate herself behind that.
Right. Now, whose gun was it, though? Was it Tory's gun?
You know, I didn't even actually, I think it was.
I never found that out for sure either. I remember them saying that it was Tory's gun initially. But, so how did both of them get the gunpowder residue? So you think they were fighting over the gun, perhaps? Two things that could have happened. Okay, so I don't know, and I didn't see the part in trial where they brought out a actual specialist to test it, because here's how gunpowder works. Here's how it works. Based on what the witness said, it makes sense that she probably was the initial shooter, right? She could have very much well been the initial shooter, but the problem is he jumped out the car and made contact with her. He could have gotten it from her hands.
He could have took it from her hands. They could have been fighting over the gun. The gun actually went off and shot her. Because then now Meg is adding these things where she's like, oh, then he told me to dance, bitch, and pulled the trigger.
They said that was a lie. Did he actually tell her that? Because the guy that was on her said that wasn't true. That they found she lied.
They're saying it's not true. But Meg added that in after the fact. The problem with Meg is that she lied initially about everything. Right. And then now she wants to change her story. To me, that alone, I would have dismissed the case. I would have dismissed the case on that alone. Because you just damaged the case so bad. You're the victim. And now you've told me an initial lie, you made up a whole story, and then you came back around, and then now you're accusing this person. So here's the thing. The witness says they saw the little man jump out the car, and then they see a muzzle flash. But the muzzle flash was closer to the lady, the female, her girlfriend. The residue was found on her. Well, my thing is she right-handed or is she left-handed, right? If she's right-handed, and the residue was on her right arm.
That makes sense.
And then, to me, she's a shooter. If Tory is left-handed or he's right-handed, I want to know where was the residue on
which
Tory.
Hand was on? That's very good right there.
And then how much residue was on Tory? Say if Tory's right-handed and she's right-handed and she's firing shots and Tory is next to her, well, then there's going to be more gunpowder residue on Tory's, maybe the side of his arm, the back of his arm, you know. Where's the gunpowder residue going to be on the shooter? Depending on how they're shooting, it's going to be on their face. Because
it's blowback. Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to be on their chest, and it's going to be all on their arm. If I'm testing Tory and he doesn't have gun residue, mind you, I don't think they had on shirts. They just came back.
No, they just came from the pool. They had on bathing suits and stuff like that.
So if that girl had gun residue on her chest, she's the damn shooter. Tory doesn't have gun because he's shooting like this. If there's no gun residue on the front of his body, across his arm, that stuff gets everywhere. Wow. I don't think people understand. It gets under the fingernails, right? So I'm checking her fingernails. I'm swabbing her face for gun residue. I'm checking her hand itself. If I'm checking Tory's hand and her hand and she has all this, she's the damn shooter, you know? But because Tory would not cooperate with the police, and then Meg's whole lie, I would have dismissed the entire case. You know, I would have dismissed the whole thing. And so it's because she had high-powered attorneys from Rock and all this kind of stuff. Then they did another X-ray, and all of a sudden there's all kind of stuff in her foot. You know, bullet fragments don't work like that. You know, where it doesn't work like that. Where you just depend. Well, I would say this. No, let me take that back. Depending on what type of bullet she was shot with, will determine whether or not it shrapnels out. So it could possibly have been, but that's my thoughts. That's my thoughts on that.
Okay,
I don't know how well they did the evidence of that.
Right, how they gather the evidence. All crazy. Tony says, this guy said that you were a prosecutor. What is that all about? I love you, but you have to explain if you can, please. Explain what? Honey, I'm not a prosecutor. If I was, I don't have time to be on here with y'all. What cases?
They say you're a prosecutor?
Yeah. What cases
And
am I
why
a prosecutor?
would it matter? You know, I don't know what it is in our community.
Maybe they're talking about you. But they said I love you, but you need to explain. I'm thinking they're talking to me. But why, if I'm a prosecutor, do y'all really think I have time to be on YouTube?
Well, I hope that they're not in front. See, I get a lot.
Oh, no. They're talking to you. They said, cooperate with the policeman, please. You are absolutely the system. They said I'm the system. Oh, okay. Well, you don't have to be in my chat, beloved Tony Clower Sr. I don't know what you mean. I'm the system. The system is run by wanton supremacists, beloved. I'm not one of them, so therefore, I don't have any say-so in what goes on and how these things are run, okay? So at the end of the day, I always tell you all you can exit stage left, unfollow, and subscribe. I mean, y'all know I don't give a damn. Y'all do know that, right? I keep telling y'all this. But continue, Nathan.
Yeah,
I'm the system.
Bless Tony's heart. He doesn't know any better. And this is the problem with people who think like that, because you can be mad at the system all you want. You can't run from it. And the system's going to affect you whether you like it or not. So if you have someone over here giving you game about this so-called system that you have an issue with,
right?
If you become part of the system, you're going to wish and pray that somebody's willing to give you some knowledge on how to navigate around it, how to deal with it. You know, so again, us complaining about the system and not wanting to understand the system is retarded to me.
That's right.
You just can't. It doesn't work like that. So I mean, I understand. You know, this thing that goes on in our community where we want to shun people, black people,
for having knowledge and try to share it with you. That's all I'm on here to do.
You know, saying people like to say, I've heard it before, but we need more of our people in these positions of power and influence to have an impact.
Absolutely.
You guys, it makes a difference. I have plenty of friends who work in the prosecutor's office, and they are overseers over other black people as well.
That's
even
right.
Black prosecutors, even white prosecutors, and they call out BS. They hold people accountable. And so there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes. You want to see a familiar face inside this so-called system. So
and let me say this. One of the reasons I went to school for criminal justice is because I wanted to know the law. Like I said, I knew at an early age when I was even in high school that black people do not know the law. And I always like to know stuff, and especially if it's something that most people don't know and they're not familiar. But also, my Uncle Frankie went to college for criminal justice. He's retired GBI special agent. Now, my uncle, when he was working as a special agent, his own supervisor said some racist stuff, would do some racist stuff. Now, he would never do it to my uncle. He would do it to other black people. But my uncle wasn't going to stand for it, because like my uncle always has taught me, it doesn't matter if it doesn't happen to you. If you see it happen to anyone, you need to say something, any of your people. And at the end of the day, remember what Dr. King, wasn't Dr. King who said an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere? So see, but some black people feel like, well, if it didn't happen to me, I don't have to worry about it. I see it all the time when you see black people get their ninja wake-up call, okay? When something racist happens to them, and then they say, I can't believe that happened in 2023. What do you mean you can't believe it happened? We see it on the news every day. There's numerous stories. You hear about them. But you think you're exempt? As long as you have the skin that we're in, it could happen to you. It doesn't care. If you remember the movie Burning Mississippi, remember the joke that Gene Hackman said his father told him as a kid? His father said, what do you call a black man who's a farmer or a janitor? And he said what? He said, you call him a ninja. He said, what do you call a black man who's a doctor or an attorney? And he said what? A ninja. So that's basically letting you know that if they think you're a ninja, they just think you're a ninja. It doesn't matter how much money you have, what kind of title or accolades you have. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. And so my whole thing is, I'm sitting here trying to tell people information that can help you. Now, I went to school to learn about the criminal justice system, so I would have information and insight. I'm the system for that. Well, why don't you just leave the chat and ignore everything that I said? That's all I'm saying.
Bless his heart. I think. Okay. My thing though, and I'll say this, just to get off of that, but the problem is that there are positions of power that are available for us to obtain. that people want to exclude us from.
Yes.
And a lot of our ancestors died, to get access to these systems that
That's
a lot of
right.
us are running away from.
That's right.
So, we know the stories of how difficult it was for Black people to get in these positions. And then for us to turn our back on it, look at it like you're disrespecting your ancestors. What we need are Black people who are willing to do right, call out the BS, and hold people accountable, and even hold ourselves accountable when we're
That's
in
right.
there. And so we don't run away from it, because at the end of the day, what you're saying is, yeah, I don't like the system. I don't like cops. I don't like white cops. But then you yourself aren't willing to do the job to do better than them. And
Right. You're not out here doing anything. And
go in there
it's
and
easy.
go into these positions and these systems and start snitching on these white people that y'all don't like.
That's right. Do something. Now he's saying in the chat that he understands the system, but you don't help by working with it. Well, first of all, who said I worked with it? Like, what
Who's
are you
helping
talking
it?
about? How am I helping the system? Like, he sounds crazy. At the end of the day, I think he's a troll at this point, just trying to cause distractions. But what I was going to...
Let his troll ass come up here so I can roast him. That's all.
Okay. Yeah, let me drop that link for
Drop
it.
the link. If you feeling trolly, come troll. Come
Right.
Come
See,
on,
they don't want to
come on.
do that. They want to be keyboard gangsters and talk slick in the chat. But what I was going to say about my uncle's situation was his supervisor was doing stuff to other Black people. So my uncle wrote up a personal statement and complained on him, okay, to the higher ups, and requested that he be fired or removed. So they didn't fire him, but they did transfer him. Now that's what he did for his own supervisor. And that's where I get a lot of my my attitude, and the reason that I fight against social injustice, and I speak out about things that some people may not want to say anything because they feel like, oh, I don't want to ruffle the waters, and this and that, and I don't want to make white folk mad. But let me tell you something. The only white people who get mad at me are the ones that know it's true and this is what they do, the racist ones. Because there's white people, like some of the white people I follow on TikTok and they follow me. They'll sit there and fight, go to the courthouses, stand with the families and all that. They do videos about it, exposing other white people. And sometimes the information that I get from these stories that have not even shown up on the media, I get it from them. Because and other Black people as well who live in these places where this stuff happens. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, my subscribers, some of them have told me that when I break news on here, 3 or 4 hours later, they'll see it on CNN and NBC. Because they'll be watching my channel. And that's what I know for a fact. They'll be watching my channel. And they'll get the information and go out there and tell the stories. Because I know that a lot of the stuff they don't even hear about until I break it on here. That's just a fact. And other YouTubers as well, like Lisa Cabrera. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. When they hear some of these stories, let me tell you something. That's why they be trying to censor us. YouTube, they try to censor us and all of that stuff. And then they get mad at me when I use news clips. Well, the reason I use news clips sometimes is because the news reporters and journalists, they have a machine behind them, and they're able to get things that we're not privy to, like the police body cam. Yeah. They're able to get the witnesses who were there on the scene. They're able to do all of that. I don't have the resources to do that. So, yeah, sometimes I do use their videos. But last I checked, I thought that was protected by fair use because it's public domain. But YouTube will give me copyright claims for that. And in fact, when they took my monetization today, for those of you who don't know, yes, they took my monetization today on my backup channel. I don't really care, but this is what they did. And their reason is because they said that I use other people's videos and I don't change it to make it different or something like that. Yeah, well, let me tell you why they say that, because they only give me these claims for the news. Because I don't use anybody else's video without their permission or without their consent. When I do, if I play the audio, I don't show the video. You can do that. But they always get me with these claims from different news outlets. And I guess these news outlets complain about the Queen. But then they'll come on here and watch my stories that I break. And they'll use that. I find it all very interesting. But so now they took my monetization. And another reason they took my monetization is because I recently, like I told you, Nathan, started selling my t-shirts and hoodies on Spreadshirt. And so I applied for YouTube to add my Spreadshirt thing to my backup channel. Well, YouTube doesn't want me to sell merch on here. They don't want me to make any money on here. So they said, no, we'll just take our monetization because you can't get the shirts added unless your channel's monetized. So now, all of a sudden, conveniently, they took my monetization. Honey, I tell y'all, they be hating on the queen when I tell y'all that. Pay attention, okay? Anybody who's telling the truth and doing the right thing by black folk, they will always mess with you and harass you, okay? The people that's out here grifting and telling lies, nobody messes with their channel. They have hundreds of thousands of views and subscribers. Yes.
Listen. That is so true. And that's why I get frustrated on my channel, because though I come from a profession that some black people do not appreciate. I don't say appreciate, but don't like, or they don't appreciate the uniform. I understand the issue, right? I understand that. But I come on the channel and I give a lot of good knowledge. I try to educate a lot of things. And some things I say, we don't necessarily want to hear. It doesn't feel good to hear. But it is the truth. I'm not going to lie to you, right? You might not like what I have to say, but it's coming from a place of love, one. Two, it's coming from a person who wants to see this thing change and knows how to change it. So I think because of the approach I'm taking, people believe that because I'm talking about police issues and I'm a former officer, that I'm supposed to side with the police all the time.
Right.
And then they say, well, you're black. You're supposed to side with black folks. No, sometimes we're wrong, you guys. And a lot of times the police are wrong. And they don't want anybody coming with a message of unity and correction, because it destroys the message and it destroys the propaganda. And unfortunately, if they cannot manipulate us emotionally, you guys, we are truly free. Right. This is psychological warfare, spiritual warfare.
I keep telling them that, Nathan.
And they are using us emotionally to get us to do the things that they want us to do.
That's right.
And we are having a hard time seeing that. We saw that recently play out on the Breakfast Club with Charlemagne and Larry Elder having a discussion. And
I loved it. I can't say either one of them, but I was all here for it. I was all here for it. How are you, Charlemagne the devil, gonna sit up here and get your ace handed to you by a whole raccoon? And I loved it.
That was a
standing. That had to sting. That had to sting. He was hurt. Yes, he was.
But nobody checked him on that. I couldn't imagine.
That's right. I sat here and dogged him on my channel when Joe Biden came on there and said that, because I was like, who the hell does he think he is telling us we're not black? And I can't stand Charlemagne. But when Larry Elder told him that, you see, he was almost speechless. Then all of a sudden he said, I don't get upset about that. I don't let stuff upset me. But you want Larry Elder to get upset, though. You're asking him why he doesn't react, or when is he going? Does he know about a ninja wake up call?
Woo, that was deep. When I tell you, that was deep.
I had to show that video. I had to play the audio. I didn't show the video, but I had to play the audio on my live.
I played it. I said, y'all can have this. You can have this copyright strike.
Okay.
This needs to be said. I need people to hear what.
Yes.
And he said, listen, I'm aware that I'm black, and I think there's this misconception. He took a couple jabs at him.
Yeah.
I know how some people feel. You got brothers dating white women. I know how some people don't like that. I don't really care who you date. As long as you do right by your people, you do right by your home and your house and your kids.
That's
I don't care. But this situation was so unique because in reality, Queen, this is what I'm gonna say. Some of the biggest undercover advocates and enforcers and reinforcers of white supremacy are coming from black media. And they are pushing an agenda to keep us with a mindset of inferiority. Yeah. And when someone black decides to step up and challenge that inferiority complex that they're pushing, that we don't have what it takes, we don't have the skills, we don't have the money, we are not intelligent enough, we don't have the skill set. Those things are lies. Those are all lies. And they try to sell that narrative. And I say it all the time. I speak always from a place of empowerment when it comes to black people. I know what we're capable of. That's why I'm always willing to hold us accountable, because I know we know better and we can do better.
That's right.
And when I challenge somebody who's always willing to devalue us, those people are always pushing that message of us being inferior. And I always challenge and say, no, we're not.
That's right.
All we need to do is remove ourselves from white institutions and watch how this thing flips upside down.
That's right.
You know,
Exactly.
we have the power, we have the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
All we need to be is self-sufficient. We've done it before. It's not impossible. But that's the game changer. Pulling our money out of the. You want to fight white supremacy, guys? Stop giving them your money.
I've been
Pull your
telling
money
them
up
that.
out of them and watch what ends up happening.
Yeah. Because they need us. We don't need them.
We don't need them.
We don't need that. Here's the thing. I just showed a video the other day where this white man on TikTok was just going in on black people, saying that, it's a whole bunch of black racist people. I guess they're black supremacists and all this. And he was talking about how in 2023 we don't have anything to complain about. First of all, who is he? How a white person going to tell me what I have to complain about? That's for number one. And, he was just going on and all this foolish stuff he was saying. And I just did a video responding to it. And I played my video because I basically was telling him, first of all, you can't tell us what we are dealing with and whether or not we should complain. You would not tell the small hats that, and we all know who those are. You would definitely not ever tell them that about what they went through. You know what I'm saying? Because he basically said, get over it. Now, what I showed him was how in Jim Crow, I had a bunch of Jim Crow signs in the back as I was doing the video, but how in Jim Crow they said whites only, no black folk allowed, this, that, and the third. And one of the signs said, we only want white neighbors or white people to rent and all this stuff. Right. So I also showed a video or a story from March of this year that I actually reported on. I Googled that and showed a screenshot where this black woman was suing her landlord because he evicted her and told her that he would rather have a white family living there. So what are you talking about? We don't have anything to complain about. The same things that happened in Jim Crow are still happening. Black people are still getting lynched. Now they just tell us that it's, they did it to themselves. Okay, there's still hate crimes being committed. And then he went to talk about black supremacy, which really annoyed me because there's no such thing. There's no such thing as black supremacists. First of all, we're not going around here with hate groups attacking white folk, lynching them, using ethnic intimidation. We're not doing any of those things, and nor have we ever done those things. Well, there was one group of black folk that did it. Those were the zebra murders. You heard about those?
No, I never heard of them.
Oh, my goodness. I got to tell you about that later.
You got to put me on. All right.
You see, you probably didn't hear about that because they buried that story. Because they don't want any more of us coming to those conclusions that, hey, we need to do this too. But there was some black people that were going around, this was in the 70s, and they were doing to white folk what racist white folks have done to us, like lynching and stuff. And so they bury that. But yeah, that's, you know what I'm saying? But for the most part, overall, we don't have a history of doing things like that to them. We never burned down their towns, destroyed their businesses, bombed them. We never did any of those things. And in fact, a lot of the thing that I feel a lot of racist people think is that they're afraid if we ever come to power that we'll do to them what they have done to us. And I don't think so. I don't want to do those things to them. I just want y'all to leave us alone and that's going about our business.
Yeah, people don't understand. Black people we don't think like that. We're not morbid like that. Now we honestly, which is sad, we do more harm to each other than we do to anybody else.
Exactly.
For whatever reason, I always had a thing when we're talking about that case with the brother and I forgot what state it was in, but they those group of white men chased him in the truck, killed him.
Ahmaud Arbery, and that was down there in
Ahmaud Arbery, the gentleman.
Oh, you talking about DeMonterio?
The one where they chased him in the truck and they chased another black man. But
no. You talking about Rasheem Carter down there in what part of Mississippi was that? Yeah, that was in Mississippi, Lawrenceville, Mississippi.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So in cases like that, I look at, and I remember I was saying this to you. We have cases like this where it's like we have all these gangs and members and things like that, a part of these, and my thing is, why don't we just get a bus and send them out there and provide security for I don't understand how
make yourselves useful.
Make yourself useful.
All right.
We have so much smoke for our own people, and yet you have people in communities all throughout this country in sundown towns. They could really use some hired guns, right?
That's right.
So my thing is, and I'm not advocating for violence, but I am advocating for protection and a proper use of resources, right? And so my thing is, at the end of the day, with our community, when emotions are high, logic is low, and this is why I always talk about us taking our time and really looking at a situation and coming up with an idea. At the end of the day, no matter what people want to believe in, as far as white supremacy, systemic racism, all those things fall at the feet of a united group of Black people. Those things become irrelevant because they will not have any impact or an effect, because we will be practicing group economics. We will be putting money in our own community, circulating within our own communities. You know, our communities are so fractured, our families are so fractured. It makes us easy targets for oppression, easy targets for white supremacy or people for taking advantage of us as a group.
Right.
This is why I always preach empowerment. And so at the end of the day, it's difficult, but it's all money. At the end of the day, it's green
That's
supremacy to me. We
That's
take our
right.
money out and we maintain our own communities. All this other stuff becomes irrelevant because they wouldn't have
That's
the power
right.
to do it.
Would not have the power. And that's another thing he was complaining about. He said the Black people there, you know, they're racist. He's like, they're talking about they don't want to be around any white people. They want to separate and build their own cities. Well, yeah, some of us do. What's the problem? At the end of the day, I find it interesting that it's coming from someone whose people had Jim Crow and segregation and all of that. Now, y'all are mad because some of us don't want to be around y'all. And I told them, basically, the people that don't want to be around y'all is because they're tired of racism. They're tired of being subjugated. They're tired of discrimination. Now, somebody's going in on me and you in the chat. So let's address it. So the guy named...
Bring them up. Bring them up.
So the first person that Tony Clower or whatever his name is that said something first, he said you're the one that said the guy on there on the live with you is the one who said that you're a prosecutor. And then and he said that I was telling them to... No, you didn't say that. And he said I was telling them to work with the system. I didn't tell y'all anything. I didn't even say anything about the system. I never mentioned the system until he mentioned it. Now, fast forward, someone else said that they didn't know about you because you're Blue Lives first because you're a cop, which goes to show how much they know. Nathan is not a cop. He's retired. But let me continue. They said that you're Blue Lives first because you're a cop, and that you said out of your own mouth, Blue Lives Matter or something they said or whatever. So they said you'll basically roll with the cops first.
All right,
y'all need to sit down somewhere.
You know,
Where do y'all get this from?
I don't know, you know, and yeah, I support good officers. Blue lives do
Right.
matter.
And I support good
that.
officers too. How many times, not to cut you off, Nathan, but how many times have I told you all about the NYPD 12? It's a group of Black officers and Latino officers who were exposing the corruption, and they risked their lives because we already know what happens to cops when they start exposing things sometimes, right? And so therefore they were good officers as far as I'm concerned, and they sued the New York Police Department. Okay, so there's good officers, yes. Now there are some that are just low down and nefarious, so we already know that there's some that's racist. There's even some Black officers that are corrupt. But at the end of the day, you don't judge everybody with the same brush. You can't paint everybody with the same brush. That's just not how it goes. At the end of the day.
Listen,
okay,
I
Ms.
was
Hotel
telling you-
said he supports good officers too. Thank you.
Yeah, judge me not by the color of my uniform, right, but the content of my character.
That's
and
right.
How we all need to be. That's how we all need to be looking at each other.
Yes.
You know, not stop judging each. Just because a person's Black don't mean they got your best interest in any profession.
That's right.
Truth be told, a lot of y'all don't even like doing business with Black folk. So stop with all that. I'm
Thank you.
high and mighty pro-Black. Miss me with that, because a lot of you guys
Thank
are
you.
absolutely not. There's plenty of Black businesses
Thank
that
you.
you do not support. There's Black banks that you do not support. I give you one right now, and
Preach.
I guarantee you're not going to pull your money out of Wells Fargo and Bank of America and go put your money in a Black-owned bank. So miss me with that. And
They
that's
can
why-
miss me with it too.
Yeah, so I check y'all on this stuff. So please, you do a lot of complaining. Some of y'all Negroes in the chat are addicted to white supremacy and wouldn't know what to do if white people quit working today. And you have to want to take over these jobs.
All
So please
right.
stop. Please.
And like I told him before, and like I told him a couple of years ago, I said if all the white people just packed up and moved
Shit.
tomorrow, some of y'all Negroes would be crying.
Crying.
They might as well just throw y'all in a hole and cover you up with dirt.
Crying.
Please miss me with it.
Some of y'all need the white supremacy to get up and function.
Yeah,
So
that's
please.
right. Can't
Y'all
live
wanna see
without
what
them.
white supremacy looks like when it's removed? Go to Haiti. Go hang out in Haiti if you want to know what white supremacy looks like.
That's right.
You know, when you are forced to have to do everything yourself, which we are capable of doing,
That's right.
a lot of us don't want to do it because it's not convenient. Some
That's
of y'all
what
don't
it
want to go to
is.
the beauty supply store that's an hour drive to support a Black-owned beautician or
Because the
a
Asians are
Black-owned
right
business.
there. That's right. The Asians
Man,
are right
so
there in your
please,
neighborhood.
y'all don't. A lot of y'all don't have the pride, the ethics, or the integrity to do this thing. This stuff y'all really. It's easy to talk about, and then you jump in your white supremacy vehicle and take your ass to your white supremacy job. Okay, so just because I'm a cop, some of y'all are working in the system too. There's plenty of systems. There's plenty of systems.
That's right.
You could be a school teacher, you could be a nurse, you're working for somebody's system. So please don't act like y'all are out here with your pro-black this, pro-black that, and y'all are supporting every system that white people develop you can imagine.
That's right. And if y'all was so pro-black, how come Nathan was at Michi's Black Agenda, which was clearly there to help black people and to give us insight and information? Some of y'all didn't go. So I know y'all not sitting here trying to go in on Nathan and test his pro-blackness. So y'all need to sit down somewhere. It's all I'm saying.
Man, listen, I saved more black lives than you could ever imagine.
That's right.
Raised more black kids in black neighborhoods than you can ever imagine. I have the proof to show it. Saved more black women from black men than you can ever imagine. So please, I risk my life for black people.
That's right.
You have to miss me with that, you guys.
You're going to have to. And let me just say this, honey. Those of you who know me, who are my day ones, y'all know that I am a very good judge of character. And if I thought Nathan was sketchy and wasn't pro-black, I wouldn't have him on here. Now, you couldn't pay me all the Queen's jewels to have Officer Tatum on here. That's what you couldn't do.
I got a chance to interview him. It was a good interview. I'm going to see the link. You got to check it out.
Please send it to me because he needs to sit down somewhere. Okay? He needs to sit all the way down. Him and Jesse Lee Peterson, I cannot.
Whew, that guy. Jesse Lee Peterson, he's something else.
Yeah,
I don't know.
He's been a little quiet since those white men came out those allegations against him, though. You heard about that, right?
Nah.
Oh,
Was
you
he
didn't
touching
hear
on somebody?
Doing some things.
I'm not surprised.
Assaulting is what they charged him with. Okay, that's what they said.
I'm not. I mean, you can look at the brother and tell he ain't right. You can tell he ain't right.
That man be talking.
He's 2 Skittles away from joining the rainbow. Something wrong with him.
He need to just keep it real. Okay? So with that I've been saying, now let's talk about Judge Hatchett.
Okay.
I want your thoughts on that because I thought it was very interesting that man was bold enough to do that in a room full of people and with a male that brought her there as his guest. A retired sheriff who brought her there with him as the guest. And when she talked about this, when it's 72 years old, that was so disrespectful what he did to her. Yeah. Now, did you see the video when she spoke out about it after he pled guilty? He pled guilty the other day.
See, I actually was going to watch it and decided not to watch it. She did like a 10-minute speech. She was going in.
Yeah.
I did get a chance. I saw it, but I was going to play it, but then I had something else I was doing. But
it was sad to watch because you could tell she was trying to fight back the tears because she was really, I'm sure, humiliated. But I think, this is just my opinion, I think that he did that to not only humiliate her being a judge, but to humiliate the man that brought her there. Why would you do that in front of that man? You know what I'm saying? And just boldly did it. I mean, she said he grabbed her breast and was rubbing her and all that. Yeah, and the man had to pry his hands off of her. Now, you're a sheriff. Now, he did that so boldly to a judge in front of a room of people in broad daylight. What did he do to people that he arrested who really don't have a voice or anyone to speak up for them?
You know, when that came out, I was shocked. You know, I'll say this. He pled guilty. I think one of the issues that she had was that she had to fight for. She had to force people to be. She had to hold people accountable to do their job to ensure she got to where she's at right now on this case. Which to me obviously is the problem. And we know when people are in high positions, they're protected, you guys. It just is what it is. You know, and granted, there's more white people in positions of power than black people by nature. We already know what it is. And
that's all by design.
I mean, it is what it is. We're minorities in this country. We can't forget that. Right? So we are minorities in this country. White people outnumber us in every aspect of every single profession. It just is what it is. And so they have a lot of power. So they're going to look after each other. Now, the question, though, is that fair? Absolutely not. No matter what, there should be a independent agency that oversees overseers. And that is the problem with this country. Police have way too much power. Sheriffs have way too much power to the point to where the power threshold stops with them. They are the apex of power in this country. You have some sheriffs in these counties, you can't tell them nothing. They can break laws and violate, and no one is there to hold them accountable. Nobody has the power to.
That's
and so that is the issue, that there is no other power greater than the police and the sheriffs. And if you cross somebody too high up and they have no interest of having integrity, you're screwed.
Yeah.
It's not fair. And again, in this situation, the feds should have got involved, in my personal opinion, because you're dealing with two high professionals, a judge and a damn sheriff. Someone who can't even be fired if you wanted to fire him. He's appointed, right? So that within itself is a problem. You have some people who have a status where you just can't get rid of them like that.
Well, he went ahead and resigned now.
Yeah, he resigned,
But
and then he pled guilty.
Yeah,
You know?
but the thing is that he still gets to keep his pension, like she said.
Yeah, and the thing with that pension,
All his benefits.
here's the problem though, and I think a lot of people don't realize, is you can't just sue people like that for certain things. When it comes to police, the officer has to be acting in the color of law when the violation of law took place for you to be able to sue them, and that qualified immunity doesn't protect them. Well, he is acting as a civilian in the moment.
When he
wasn't
did
acting,
that, that's right.
He wasn't acting in his
That's
lawful
right. He wasn't on
capacity.
duty.
He wasn't on duty. He was, he was being himself.
Yeah.
And he assaulted her. So she's not going to be able to get access to his pension. She can sue him,
Right.
but then you got to prove of some type of pain, some loss, some suffering. Those type of cases aren't that easy to prove, because in civil court, you're asking for damages. What was damaged? It was more psychological damage.
Yeah.
Well, then how do you quantify that, right? Like how do we put a number to that? And so even in my case, when I was injured in my accident, you guys, and a lot of you guys probably don't know, I didn't know this, but your body parts have a price to it. So you can't just be like, hey, I tripped and twisted my ankle, I need $150,000. They're gonna be like, no, an ankle twist is worth $5,000, sir. You don't get to choose how much your body part injury cost you. When my attorney was looking at my case, it's like, your finger's worth 100, your thumb is this, your jaw's worth that. I had a whole laceration on my skull. I almost lost my left eye. He's like, oh, your eye's worth this. They're telling me how much my body part is worth. So I can't be like, I'm like, nah, I'm hurting, I'm paining, I'm this, I'm that. I can't go back to work. I'm this, I'm doing this. And you're telling me that this is how much I'm worth? So you guys, there's a
I'll tell you on the bright side.
Right.
I'll tell you the bright side, Nathan. About how much do you weigh? About
210.
Oh, okay. So I was gonna say about 190 to 200. Okay. So with that all being said, you're actually worth about $1 million because of your melanin.
Ah. All right.
You're really worth it. I'm just telling you, that's why these black folk keep coming up missing around here.
No, that's true. Listen, now I don't know if we want to put that on this stream, but
okay,
people don't know. Listen, you guys, I got a little taste of the dark web doing investigations, and I'm gonna tell you right now, there is a underbelly to society that even I don't know about, that I barely scratched the surface, and it made me scared. Things look very comfortable on the outside as we walk to and from, go to and from work. Things, you don't really see the threats that are around you.
That's right.
But man, you guys listen, there's an underworld. There is an underworld that's very live, it's very active, and people are actively on it. And I stumbled upon this investigating a fraud ring. I specialize in fraud investigations. And I stumbled upon a lady who was on the dark web getting social security numbers and bank account information. And so she goes on there, she steals your social, and she sells it to other people on there.
Oh,
right?
wow.
But while you're on there, you see what other people are selling and buying. They're selling children, they're selling organs.
Yeah.
And they're asking how much you want for this black body. Why? Because people want these organs because they're quality. So,
wow. Yeah.
there's so much that we are just oblivious to, you guys. A lot of us are walking around with our eyes wide shut, And when you hear about these kids going missing, they want these broken homes. Why? Because these kids become fair game to them, right? No one's gonna miss these kids when they run away. No one's gonna miss these homeless people. You guys, there are people who actually travel throughout these cities looking for people to snatch up. And because there's somebody who's saying, hey, I'll give you 100,000 for I need the heart of a black kid between the ages of 6 and 12. I'll pay you $100,000 for.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then next or you wonder what they're doing with these kids that are being aborted, right? There's money in those fetuses.
Yeah, making millions.
Those fetuses have value, you guys, and so they're extracting things from. So this stuff gets deep, and that was
even the placentas, the afterbirth.
When I'm having kids, I'm keeping don't give them nothing.
That's what I did. We're taking this home with us. Like, what y'all talking about?
Yep, I need the juices, all of that, everything that came out of her. I need it in this bowl right here.
That's right.
I'm right there watching. Do not give the umbilical cord away. Don't give nothing. They keeps nothing.
And they're making all this money, and they don't give you a dime of it. You could be somebody struggling, barely making ends meet.
Man.
Then they're gonna leave you with a big hospital bill. I mean, your hospital bill should be paid off if that's the case.
By the time they get done using all that stuff, man, it's so much stuff that goes on, you guys. It's very sad. There's a world under this world that you think looks pretty, and it's not. And it's very scary, to be honest with you.
And let me say this, Nathan. I'm gonna wrap this up because we've been on here 2.5 hours.
We be getting to talking.
I know, right? I know. I'm gonna have you back on here because I have another story I'm working on for my true crime channel, so I got to get that together. But what I was gonna say is that there is an underbelly, and I have been telling them about how even like with these mass shooters, when they love to tell us it's a lone wolf, there's a whole network of underground people that work in unison together. They wear the same clothes so they can identify each other, khakis with black t-shirts or long sleeves, short sleeves, it doesn't matter, but as long as they're black. They wear black combat boots. They may have the white laces or the red laces, which I do believe means that they spilled blood of somebody, that killed somebody. So they have all these things going on. But also, there's something that I can't talk about on here, but Nathan, I'm going to have to tell you about this at some point. Because I found this out years ago, and it was a rabbi who exposed this information. Okay? They have wiped it from the internet. When I tell you, it took me about 2 years to find that video, because the first time I saw it, it didn't dawn on me, because I saw it years ago, like a decade ago. It didn't dawn on me at the time that I need to, download this and save it. But when I was telling somebody about it, they could not believe it. And I said, no, there's proof. But I could not find that video. But I have that video now, and I'm making sure that I made extra copies, because they don't want this kind of stuff to get out. This is all so nefarious. And some of this stuff will make your blood run cold. Some of the stuff these people do, it's just all sick.
It's very demonic, and a lot of people don't see this, the spiritual aspect that's taking place. And you wonder why you have a particular political group pushing particular policies,
agendas and stuff.
You guys, because they are taking the byproduct of our negative outcomes, and they are using it to not only make money, but to profit off of. But these things, this is what I'll say. Whether you're into the Bible or not, there are stories in the Bible that are replaying, that have never stopped playing today. Right? The sacrificing of children, the spirit of homosexuality, the deities that are being worshipped. If you look and start seeing everything, everything starts to align itself. You see everything in plain sight. It's the same process. It's just remolded to look different, but the transactions are the same. The actual acts are the same. They decorate it in a way to where it catches you off guard, But we're gonna have a show on that and really discuss some of these crazy things,
We might have to do that on Patreon or something.
Facts.
So I'm wanting to get one of those streaming platforms like Michi has. Michi gave the information. I already had a consultation with them. That's what I really want to do, because YouTube, you can't talk about certain things. And I gave up so much juicy information on here. YouTube took that stuff right down, gave me strikes, and told me I was cyberbullying and harassing. Make it all make sense. So I'm cyberbullying and harassing the pedos? Because that's the only people I'm talking about. I'm saying.
Well, listen, they don't want. That's why. Listen, they used to put them kids on missing cartons, and when they started finding them and finding they were politicians and high-profile people, they told them, "Hey, you need to cut that out because you messing our stuff up."
That's right. I'm gonna tell you this. There was one person that I reported on, and he was over there in the UK. His name was Jimmy Seville, and he was even knighted by Queen Elizabeth.
Okay.
Which I'm not surprised, because there's some shady stuff that's going on with them too. Let's not forget all those kids that came up missing in the 60s. You know about that, right?
Hey.
Went on a trip with her and some of her people and never was to be seen or heard from again.
Never came back.
Right. Oh, crazy.
Yeah, we're going to miss them. Some of these parents could take a check and get rid of their kid.
Yeah. That's right. Okay, so Nathan, I appreciate you coming on here. It has been wonderful. You gave us a wealth of information. And at the end of the day, I'm going to have you back on here.
Absolutely. Anytime.
We have some juicy conversations, and everybody loves it. You always give us good talking points and knowledge and information. So I appreciate that. Now tell everyone where they can find you on your platforms.
Yes, you guys. You can find me at Real Nathan Daley on YouTube, on Instagram. Feel free to come by, check out the channel. If you see value in what you see, by all means, please support by subscribing. We have these type of conversations on my channel all the time as well. And I like to give information, good feedback, so don't hesitate to ask questions. I'm an open book. And with that being said, Ms. Queen, thank you so much again for just another opportunity.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. And, once I get this other stream piece together, I definitely want us to do a joint stream together.
Absolutely.
And again, thank you again. And thank you to the chat, you guys, for your patience and just willingness to hear me out. I really appreciate it. It means a lot.
All right. So I appreciate you coming on, Nathan. It's always a pleasure. You can come anytime. So I really want to have you back on here in about a week, because after I drop this video that I'm doing, it's a true crime.
Okay.
And it's something very suspicious about this whole case that I'm going to want your insight on. So what I'm going to do is, when I finish it, I'm going to send it to you for your review. Okay. And then, so we can come back and talk about that. Okay. So everyone, thank you all for tuning back in once again. Please like and share. Make sure you like and share the videos. Make sure you go and join Real Nathan Daley on his YouTube channel. And also, listen, everyone, enjoy the rest of this lovely evening. Don't forget that tomorrow is Trivia Fridays, and y'all already know how it's going down. Because I told you all, the people that won last week, they're moving up this week. They're going to play the Jeopardy rounds, and the questions won't be easy. When I say Jeopardy, y'all better get ready for it. And you're not going to have time to cheat, cheaters. For those of you who try to Google the answers, you already know that's not going to fly. And so we're going to have the regular trivia first, and then I'll get 2 winners from that and add them to the next round. And so we should have, I think 4 people for the Jeopardy round. And then next week, it's going to be the Family Feud, all right, where we're going to have teams. All right, so anyway, make sure y'all been paying attention. I hope y'all were listening to everything Nathan said and I said, because the questions will be about this live and the previous lives from earlier this week. Okay, so that all been said, each one teach one. That's how we grow and thrive. Do something productive, constructive, but never destructive. And always remember, beloveds, to keep the Most High first in your lives. Peace.
Amen.
Gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you're done. They show no love for the queen. Why you hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans? I got dreams like King Luther, shed blood like Kunta. You ain't helping my people, I ain't got nothing to say to ya. I want all the smoke like hookah. Talking reparations, America won't be great until they give us compensation. I'm like, I'm the hottest right now.
That's
See
right.
a bunch of lames out here trying to jock on my style. They be doing too much. I'm the queen, it's too easy. It's like they all at Popeyes, how they be talking so greasy.
Real slick.
I just sit back and laugh while these haters get madder. So nefarious how they don't want my pockets with cheddar. I tell them they can do better. These snakes in the grass can leave a bite on your ass, cause y'all be trusting too fast. I got my foot on the gas, other one on they necks. Dropping receipts on haters, you better show some respect. I'm never facing regrets, we only facing the threats. Running through every challenge like a relay, break no sweat. It's a cold game, so I got that blanket with me. Now that my people awaken, ain't no going to sleep. I do not play by my piece, this time I'm playing for keeps. You talking slick, but when I see you like them ends, we gon' meet. And I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen, why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans and I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen, why